Welcome to the Auburn Municipal Development District Work Session on April 9th, 2024 at the Auburn MDD Building. We'll now call the work session to order at 5:37 p.m. And we will take roll to determine if a quorum is present. Please say here when I read your name. Holly Drew, here. Aaron Bogart, here. Mike Browning,
Here.
Vicki Dunn, absent. Jesse Allen.
Here, and just on note, Vicki texted me, she's gonna be here just a little bit late with the
Okay.
start, the early start time.
Yeah.
It should be early for the regular time, just.
Yeah.
Early start.
Okay, no big deal. Mark Abernowski
Here.
and Tim Hyman.
Here.
All right. There, we do have some others present.
Daryl Taylor.
Daryl Taylor's
with
here
Project Advocates.
with Project Advocates, and the Catalyst Group is here as well to talk with us. I want to thank our consultants with Catalyst Group, Jason and Chris, for coming out tonight. They will now take us through the presentation and discuss for the strategic plan.
Pledge allegiance and.
We'll do that at the
We'll do
regular
that.
meeting, is that right? Is that okay?
Yes, that's the
That-
script. That's the script we got from Alicia, so
Mhm.
you're fine.
We have 30 minutes for this, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm not gonna do any sort of presentation, but I just kind of want to talk through. I've given, kind of an agenda of questions.
And you all have that handout on the top of your packet.
That's right.
So this is kicking off the strategic plan that nests within the, the comprehensive plan that's getting kicked off and starting the tour tomorrow, but we just wanted to get kind of some context of what's going on in Aubrey right now, what's going on under the economic development, umbrella within the MDD, just get some context of what's going on, what's keeping you guys up at night, what are the big things coming down the pipeline, all that. I probably got, way more than 30 minutes of questions on here, but if we can kind of work through some of them, and I'm gonna take notes while we talk, that would be good.
All right.
So I know you guys had kind of done some visioning and kind of a mission statement back in a work session in January, and if you guys want to take this home, I can send it to you electronically too, if you want to type out responses or you want to, give comments on something specific, that's fine too, or we can talk through some of these things, but I think one of the first things I want to talk about is what drives people to, live in Aubrey. I have some of my preconceived biases, but what are people coming to and living in Aubrey for right now?
School district, school district affordability and comparisons that are.
Yeah, relative
Relative affordability.
Yeah. The community and lifestyle.
That would be amazing. That's why.
That might be a driver over some of the other ones actually,
Mhm.
because the schools are great, but
Not
if
everybody.
you don't have school age children or you're not about to, sure.
Correct. Location too.
Do you think that's
Frankly, maybe a scope of housing pinch everywhere else. So desperation is not a word, but like, if they don't have, if they cannot find a house in Frisco and they just know they want to be North Central, then, for somebody moving in from out of area, and I had a buddy do this last year, Salina, Aubrey, Argyle, they had a few things I wanted to check off, but it was also inventory for them.
There's a lot of new construction compared to some of the new starts. A little bit more.
A little bit more, not price wise, but volume, it's more quantity.
You can walk into a builder and they'll have some options for you.
Because price wise, I don't imagine it's much different
No.
from anywhere
If there was
across the Middle Point. Anything that is, for a similarly sized house.
Right.
That would be.
I think looking at Anna, Melissa, and Austin. those types of markets. They're, I mean, very similar for new construction, but very different corridors. Highway 75, starts with 377.
Mhm.
So they're kind of north south corridors, commutes or
Mhm.
tax rates.
Yeah,
all different directions.
what else? What about retail quality in downtown? I realize that the retail market isn't super mature yet, but, what about downtown and retail market?
Yeah.
Is that an
I don't think that's-
attractive thing to people?
I don't think at all, like I said, I live on the west side of 1385. Everybody on that side of town thinks they live in Prosper. They only go east, they don't go west, they just don't. Anything over here is almost an afterthought,
Yeah.
in terms of shopping, food, anything, I mean, even at 377, nobody over there thinks, all they think of is, thank goodness don't have to go south of 380. But now that all those roads go east and west, Parvin and all that, everybody just goes to Prosper.
Do you feel like that changes if they have school age children, like middle school or high school age kids, since those schools are on the side, or?
I
They gotta get them through downtown.
Yeah, I can't really say, cause like in Sandrock Ranch, most of the people that we know are 50 and above. Or their kids go to the school in Sandrock. I don't know too many people that have like high school age kids.
Well, I think that's not even Aubrey ISD, so.
So to your point, the question is, do you think people are coming because of the downtown?
Is that an asset to people that are looking in the area? Is that a thought right now, or is it not
I don't.
mature enough to be?
I live, when we moved here, 3 years ago, downtown was not even on our radar. There's nothing really different than one, especially in Michigan.
Yeah.
I'll say this, when we moved here, we knew there wasn't much going on down here, but we liked the downtown,
Yeah.
it's a look and feel of it. And we moved from Denton, so, having watched Denton change and grow significantly in 16, 17 years, like, I was like, oh, this looks like, a neat little downtown. We didn't quite know there wasn't much going on at the time, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot going on, and then,
Right.
that hasn't changed much yet.
Yeah, cause I think the towns that have it, Denton and McKinney, people, if they go there for the downtown, they know it and it has its own personality and it exists. People don't go to downtown Frisco, they don't think of old Plano.
Right.
But up here, those are the two things that I think people, when they think downtown, that's the model they think of.
Right.
Well, we like Salina, their
Salina's
downtown,
good. It's
their
got-
downtown doesn't look markedly different than ours, I mean, the fact they're a little bit further ahead in that growth cycle.
Yep, no, that's, I agree with that too.
Yes, when we moved from Frisco, we weren't even thinking about downtown, we were thinking the house is what we wanted, and we're on that side. So, I mean, I do come here, and that's why I got involved, but at the same time, it's because I'm used to small towns. Kansas. And that's what I wanted again, was a small town that we could involve in.
I think that's a good idea. Even though it's not small, it's not as small as it used to be, it's still a small town, and you still get that atmosphere, still community.
Right. And kind of that same vein, what needs to be preserved? What's kind of the sacred assets within Aubrey? Imagine downtown is one of those things that you want to preserve, enhance, and, make better.
The feel of downtown,
Mhm.
surely is something we have to preserve. And I would say some of the community feel we need to be preserved. It might be a little tough for some of our eastern side residents, because, frankly,
Just
it's a housing development.
Yeah.
There's not a lot that says, hey, we're in Auburn, this is Auburn. And if their kids don't go to school here, it doesn't necessarily build. Now, building that community thing, this is still, and probably remain for a long time, a one high school town, which, in towns similarly sized, having one high school can help keep that community.
And the schools are mostly downtown, like when they build the middle school, it's gonna put a lot of people from having to drive through town. Like that really, right now, the middle school, they have to go through town every day and go over here at 8 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you still have the high school that's not that far from downtown, so
Right.
I agree with that.
I think the horse country USA thing would be a real challenge. It'd be nice to maintain it, but I think that could be a challenge to maintain as folks sell out and development comes in, it's gonna be difficult to maintain that.
But I do think the heritage, and like, when we have the heritage of the peanut festival, people are like, where did the peanut festival come? So with that, you can bring on the story of how that actually happened. Cotton, peanuts, horses, it all stemmed from that. So we do have the festivals that kind of help that, but I think we do want to maintain the background of the town.
You're already losing the peanut.
Right.
To some
Yeah.
extent, so.
And that's been a
that's even
staple,
dying.
yeah, for so long.
And I think your point about horse country, we moved out to Sandrock in 2005 years ago. And that was certainly, I'm from Iowa, so I'm a small town. That was actually way more of an attraction than downtown. It was nice to have the feel of a downtown that you could see visualized, but we actually liked the concept of, wow, this is the only place anywhere near here where you can drive on Friendship Lane, and it feels like you wanted it to feel, especially coming from Frisco. Where I
It's a
was.
little country.
Yeah, because we came to Frisco in 2001, when there was 10,000 people there or whatever. So we
Yeah, I get
we
it.
wanted that same feel, and that still is here. 428 is getting harder to maintain that feel, but that is, I would say, 10x from our standpoint, more important than what downtown was.
Even to places like the farm and stuff, like where you're driving by.
100%.
The scenery's better.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
100%.
and I mean, Frisco's like white knuckle driving, kamikaze type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, stuff like the stuff.
Oh,
Well, and this might be a slightly linked to both strengthening like the lake area as well. In addition, like outdoor space and recreation, in between two major lakes like this.
Yeah.
That's both something we'd love to preserve or promote.
Yeah, because it doesn't even come up on our side, and that is a really that's a really small thing. I would like to talk. Yeah, again, maybe it's just because we also have a lot of Californians in Sandrock Ranch. And maybe it is just the lifestyle of the 50 to 70-year-old people that we know versus a younger set.
Well, and there on that side, they could just as easily run down to Little Elm if they want some lake action as opposed to coming.
And I think people visualize that, because again, it's just kind of like it's just there. It's not that it's better or worse, it's just convenient. You just go right down 423.
Yeah.
But I know like Pilot Point is loving the new development of the marina and all that, and are really trying to tie into that as one of their primary things.
What keeps you guys up at night thinking of the next like 10 to 15 years as Aubrey, along with everything north of 380 matures? What are your
Yeah, losing the community feeling,
I'd say,
losing that family feeling.
yeah, the change of character that is likely to happen, and there's only so much we can do to affect that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to become Frisco.
You're driving down the road,
I don't want to become Frisco 2.0. I've already been there. And I don't want it to be Prosper 2.0, which is got their own deals, but that's, this is the one town, if you think about it, this is the one town in 40 miles that is still what it was versus what all these other, they've but I mean, really, I think.
Yeah,
Everything else-
Grayson County might change, you say, but it doesn't change much for Holland or Denton.
No, this is the last bastion.
some growth and development.
This is the last bastion of that feel in this area. And I moved here in '83, so I've been around Dallas for a long, I've seen Las Colinas grow. I lived near South, I lived in Keller when it was a 2-lane road. So I've actually, now that I do, I've lost like everything about this place except
You're a small town migrant.
Yeah.
I'm doing
What's next?
Yeah, I'm destroying it's
Yeah.
following me around. But I, think.
We're gonna have to kick you out.
I think that's what you should find a place that you like, and then the growth just smooths that one, so you move a little bit further.
Yes, yeah.
To a place you like.
Oklahoma's coming.
Unfortunately, I think that it was, the growth, we can't keep it from happening, unless we owned all the property and refused to sell it. But, what keeps me up at night is, what are we going to do from not just identity, but from a commercial tax base versus just being all residential tax.
Mhm.
Where are we going to have responsible manufacturing, or, you know, as community, we want to do any kind of commercial manufacturing? I mean, I'd rather have.
You know, it's not, talk some of us have talked about, you know, one school town, community. If it's nothing but houses, if you start looking like Prosper,
Mhm,
well, now you're, what, 2, 3, 6A schools?
mhm.
Did they
That's
really, as a city, do they feel more together than they did when they were a one school town? Probably not,
No,
you know, and then conversely, you know, a lot of those folks, they're not working there either.
Hmm.
They're going down to Plano, they're going down to Frisco, they're going down to Dallas, so there's some sort of balance that's probably appropriate for us, to where it maintains the population at a certain level, where you can have the community feel. I think there's probably ways to do it where you can have, you know, the right kinds of industrial parks that aren't, you know,
Exactly.
smudged up the sky. They're not ugly to the eye. If
Yeah.
you can, you know, find ways to attractively present the outsides. And then, you know, where are these folks gonna work? You know, when these kids are coming in, what are they gonna do?
Right.
You know, is this a place they want to move away from? Is this a place they have to move away from?
Mm.
You know, when my daughter gets out of college in a year and a half, she's probably not coming to Aubrey because that's not a fun place to live as a 23-year-old fresh college graduate in commercial real estate.
So there's opportunity for mixed use development that makes sense, that keeps people in, getting live, work, play,
Yeah.
contacts.
Mhm.
If there's areas and arenas for that, even if that's what downtown is,
Yeah.
work and play.
Mhm.
And I know Frisco's Sports Town USA, but the other thing that they've been able to do, and I don't really know why, and even on the quarter 380, is all the medical buildings that you get, whether it's,
That's their MDD bought up all the land.
Is that-
That's.
I mean, because that's kind of a, I don't want to say an ideal arrangement, but those people are gonna live here and work here,
Yeah.
a higher net worth, you know, I mean, the medical community, the way they kind of constructed the different campuses and things, that's actually, that's destination, that's higher income, and they're gonna live right there. They don't want to drop, you know, they're not gonna live in Plano to go work off of 380 down there, but they're gonna live right over there. So I think that's one thing that those people have done, is been able to cultivate that high end. And it just makes sense in a lot of different ways.
Mental,
Yeah, I know, that's, great. Oh, I never heard that, that's a great,
they call it a whole new asset, but they call mental.
that's great,
There's some couple that.
that's great.
And back to your point about the mix of commercial uses within, I mean, you're not gonna sustain a budget with single family only. So
Right.
when you get,
It's about the high taxes.
we do a lot of work and just finished up a big project in Fate on the zoning on a big mixed use project, but their other option was keep everything single family and,
Fate's an interesting,
you
an
know,
interesting take, because the other thing that they have as both an advantage and disadvantage is they're split between 2 school districts.
Mhm.
So frankly, if you're the city manager, what do I care if I'm gonna go overly dense in an area? It's not my problem. And I can let these 2 school districts pit each other out. It's not the same here where Trinidad is one team, one community. Fate's a little bit weird in
Yeah.
that respect.
well, they were
Don't
looking at.
forget, we do have 2 school districts here. Like he said, we have Sandbrook has, the Eastern ETJ goes to Dead Dynasty,
In Prosper, in our.
Yeah, it's dead, right? So,
but it's still 2 school
Yeah,
districts, 2
but I
high
mean-
schools.
Well,
It
you know,
is.
that's also part of the problem up over there. One school's in Sandbrook, and then, oh, we're gonna go to, whatever, Braswell, right? I mean, again, the focus is not this part of town, and it's not just Sandbrook, I mean, pick anybody over there. Everybody's gonna think that, even halfway on 428, all those people are probably not, they're gonna be the same thing.
Chris, this is the area that we're referring to.
Yeah, okay.
That's 1485 lines across the street. So down here on 380 is Braswell High School.
Yep.
So Winridge, Arrowhead, Arrowbrook, and Sandbrook all go to Denton ISD. So, and will we have anyone touching Pilot Point ISD in those upper, no?
What does Aubrey do well as far as business retention, expansion, business attraction? What do they not do well?
well, we've been able to, in the past, and this goes back a few years, so, you know, frankly, there's only a few people left that we remember. Because most of the city administration is different, council is completely different. our biggest manufacturer, top 3 cloud employer. We were able to attract them, and at that point, the city was able to work hand in hand with multiple entities, so city, MDD, county, with a little bit of, incentives. So that was there, like, there is a history of that. Maybe a downside, you don't always tell that story very well.
Right.
Um,
Because I think it is beneficial, because a lot of people don't, y'all repurpose a building that was not just gonna sit there, and they figured out a way to repurpose this building that could have been just an eyesore for forever.
and on the flip side of it, we don't have a lot of places to put a new business.
Right.
You know, at the current moment, if you just look at the inventory, there's not like, hey, this is a perfect spot for X business. So, but that's true though in the city center, clearly where you live, there's functionally 0 retail for us on that east side.
Right.
I think in the past they have done a good job, and we need to continue it, but bringing in, helping businesses come in, not just be on Allen Center, but like, they really did work really hard on several.
And, we, like, the Chicken Express over here, it might seem small to some folks, but it's still a small city. You know, they revitalized ownership. And this owner got an opportunity to come in, their multiple franchise owner, came in, they revamped it. They had their plan from the start, and we were able to extend the grant to make things just a little bit easier on. But, things like that, and that was a combined, so like, there's a history even fairly recently. Of those combined grants where we can do some stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then again, we still have one to put them, and, we're probably not really good at telling that story. I'll also say we're probably, well, not probably, we are still working on defining who we are, what we are, and having that information, so we can say, hey, developer, hey, retail company, hey, here's this, tell them our own story.
Yeah.
We're not great at it yet.
Yeah, we just got our executive, she hasn't even been with us for a whole year yet, so we're all kind of, next month, golly, time is flying. So that, but we're all kind of getting under, she's.
A lot of new board members. too.
Yeah, and a lot of new board members, so we're all kind of learning together, which probably does help the growth of it very well too.
Part of this is not just us, right? You take a look at like the holistic city, so on city council, all of those members are multiple term members.
Yeah.
So, Charles has been city manager now for 2 years, over 2, like
Wow.
over 3.
And there's been a lot of growth within the city in just those 2 years. It's amazing
Yeah,
to
in
see
that
everything.
time frame, you guys have added, well, we got another fire station who come on here soon. They're now over 100 employees. But there's still, like, city secretaries been here for a lot. So we have, in that case, we have a mix of tenure and new, but again, are we great at telling that story? Maybe not.
Yeah. So in general, is the marketing of Aubrey not where it should be right now, or?
Well, and again, but what we need to ask is what we're trying to market. I don't know if we've got like our land use plan, but
In that other.
again, frankly, the land use plan, what's getting what and what shows up is not always the same thing.
Yeah. That should be recalibrated with the comp plan.
Yeah, well, that's why we're kind of now.
Right.
Because these are gonna kind of work together, they should be meshed, right? So that's something to think about is, if the old land use plan is like, these are all 5-acre lots.
Yeah.
And they sell out, it's outside the city limits, it's not zoned that way. Well, guess what? What do they want to build right now? They want to build houses.
Right.
So that's what's probably gonna happen. So we right now, to market that, it's kind of tough to, it's sort of tough to market, where to market a major distribution point, where we also build, we don't own the land, so.
So Chris, it just on the table, and I brought these to remind everybody, this is what we used at ICSC, which was all updated data on demographics. Not necessarily, deals we've done that we brought in, but I wanted you to take some with you too. But basically, we just identified our trade area up to 2032 using that Placer AI data. We did put some of those projects Shell done on the front so people could kind of see the newer part of Aubrey. So in marketing, we kind of took that older brand that was just rural it seemed just rural, and we showed some of the new development versus the historic versus, the growth. So that's something we just recently did, and then the city just got, city manager just got an assistant that she's also doing social media for the city, which is helping, I think, gonna help tell some of that story. And then, we really do need to build up a Facebook campaign, and identifying some of those businesses. So, those are things kind of just getting started in the works, but definitely this would be the newest piece in terms of brochure. Website kind of starting to reflect this, feel, but website is still kind of coming along, updates needed to be done and analytics and stuff. So working on that, but those are some of the things that I've started to kind of work on in the background since I got here. And just getting the information was one of the bigger jobs.
Yeah, that placer stuff is very helpful. We used to go around and the license plate reader and we bounce it off tax records and figure out where people are coming from. So using placer stuff is, you have a lot more samples and it's a little bit easier to do. So we use that a little bit, and then we also use a company that does kind of the same thing, Celebrate, I believe it's called, but it does the same thing with cell phone data and where people are coming from to understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
The clear marketing question, are you thinking more in terms of potential residents or potential?
No,
Businesses.
business, yeah. Yeah, how the MDD is marketing, what's going on.
Yeah. And that's been our focus is businesses. So the other thing we've been doing is I meet with brokers a lot and let them know, some of these things that are happening, some of the growth we're seeing, but where we would like to see that land, use be, and where we'd like to, what businesses we'd like to see in these vacant spaces that we're getting built, the types of businesses that would make sense. So, and a lot of them have their own data that they're using. So it's same program, same data, but I try to paint, a little more realistic picture of everyday life. So I do think that all is happening in the background, but it needs to, from a staff standpoint, it would be great to come together, have it come together.
Where are you getting most pressure from? On my own time.
Charles, did you want to say something?
We're really, what I'm hearing is a lot of short term,
Yeah.
right, that we're talking about. And to give you a little bit more of a long-term perspective, which you'll get more of this tomorrow. Can you point out the ultimate growth boundary, where it's at up there on the top? Go all the way up from 11, don't come back in, come back to right, don't go up, right there, go straight east. Come, bring your finger down, just a little bit, right there on that road.
Oh, Mustang Road.
Mustang Road, that is our ultimate growth boundary. It's not depicted on that map. The new map will show that, but what you're seeing is 45 square miles, so.
And then length of that point, right?
We're.
West Captain, that'll be a straight west line there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does a little loopy loop.
But I mean, functionally, it's not completely going up there.
Yeah. So that whole corner is included in our ultimate growth boundary. That's 45 square miles.
That's
Right
awesome.
now- Right now, not including just county homes, ranchettes and 1 acre lots or homes that are not in a subdivision. If you count the city limits of Aubrey, including Wind Ridge, and all of the subdivisions that you see up there that are numbered, that have houses in them, right now, we have over 7,000 homes on the ground that are built. Currently, we have 7,000 homes in development. And when I say 7,000 in development, I mean a development agreement has been made, the land has been purchased, it's a done deal, it's going to happen. We have 3,000.
Double your population.
Charles, this is the map up here.
Yeah, that shows your ultimate growth boundary there. So there's 3,500 homes that are in review, 6 developments and 3,500 homes. So we've got over 10,000 homes that are coming at a pretty fast clip. It's not going to be slow.
I'm gonna print these.
Now, our population is not going to grow as fast because a lot of these are MUDs. And our ETJ population is going to grow. So we have to take that into consideration. Right now, the population of Albany is 8,550 as of January 1 of 2023. But I'm thinking that right now we're pushing 10,000. That's just in the city limits. And I think we'll be well over 10,000 next year. Because we have almost 2,000 homes in the city limits that are planned and ready to go. That are about to, some of those are about to start. So
looking at it from the standpoint of where do we go in the future? FM 1385, FM 2931 is going to be a 6-lane highway. I met with a developer last week. That's where they're starting to look on those roads that are going to get much bigger. FM 1385 is going to be a 4-lane highway that will eventually be a 6-lane highway. I think both are going to start at 4 and they're buildable 6. They're getting enough.
Right, and all that.
Yeah, they're getting enough right of way to do that. I know for a fact that it is on 2931. I don't know on 1385. I don't know if they're taking enough, if they're getting enough right of way. But that's going to change the dynamic that you're talking about people going east and south. Because along that line up there at the top where we were talking about, where you see the Texas sign up there that says FM 428, that's going to be the outer loop. And the outer loop is going to bisect the city. And that's going to be 500 feet of right of way. No, that's
Cause it'll go.
1,000 feet of right of way.
Right up here.
And that's going to change dramatically what's going on in Auburn. Now, a lot of that is going to be, there's two different landowners that own a large pieces of property that will have a lot of say in how that works in the commercial in the future. But right now, the focus is 377, 1385, and 2931. Those are the areas that commercial can grow. The city is going to obtain some property out on 2931, probably within this year. We don't know. It'll be a retail space. Don't know what it'll be at this point. But for the strategic future of the MDD, we need to be looking at what land can we purchase, what things can we lay our hands on that are reasonable. Now, Mike has talked about manufacturing before. I don't know where we're going to be with manufacturing. Land is so expensive right now here that it's developers that build homes.
Right.
It's going to have to be something really big for somebody to come in.
$3 land isn't the thing here.
No, $3.
Nowhere near.
We're looking at land right now, 377, that's $12.
Yeah.
So it's really outrageous. I just did an appraisal, I just got an appraisal on 10 acres on 377, and it was 5.7 for 10 acres. 10 acres. Just 10 acres.
Nothing else on it.
Just 10 acres of land, and there's a high pressure gas line running. 5.7 million.
Dang.
So it's really going to be difficult for people to make money that aren't houses and that aren't retail. The commercial aspect of it, I don't know how we're going to do that. We're going to have to go over here in the center where we have all these pits and see, but you know, the pits, they're filling the pits in to build houses. That's what they're doing out here, where you see that number 12, the top number 12 right there to the right of that. There's 2 major sand pits out there. No, keep going to the right. Keep going to the right, right there. That's 2 major sand pits over there, and they're filling them in to build.
That's a major routine.
It's like a shipping foundation.
So that's just a perspective. That's just a perspective. Look at that to say, in the short term, yes, we have some issues
Yeah.
that are driving people away. That once these things start happening, we're going to see a big difference in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And isn't that the role of the MDD as well, to help promote the business aspect?
Yes.
Acquire land, acquire things that would make it so that manufacturing, or I was looking at data center,
Incentives.
not a lot of traffic, a lot of revenue coming, different things. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that in there. So that
Yeah.
you see
No, that's
that.
good content.
No, that's
I meant to print it
super.
out, but I'm sharing the screen now so Jason can see it. But Jason,
Yeah.
you have access to this in the files I shared with you and Chris.
Correct. Yeah, this has been very helpful. And I also want to say I want to be respectful of your time, because we could do this for hours for sure. But I know Jim and several folks have other agenda items, and we're going to be back tomorrow. But we wanted to use this opportunity as a primer, just to visit with you guys and understand what's, some of the priorities are, and some, where some of the growth pressures are. But we understand our role is clear. I mean, obviously, we're going to look for opportunities to balance the market and the economy in a context sensitive way. And with our role in the comp plan, we're going to make sure that we try to do is, whatever we can to manage growth and protect that character that's important. I think that was good to hear. So I'll let you guys continue the discussion, but if we need to wrap up, we're certainly happy to do so. We'll be back tomorrow, and then we can do a longer workshop as we get, more information and start digging in a little bit deeper.
And we can fill it out. for you.
Yeah, like I said,
If you want
I
us
can
to
send it to you electronically, you can just fill it out
Okay.
and type it,
Yeah.
or you can handwrite it, but any thoughts that you guys have on any of these questions will be helpful to us.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
Be great.
We'll mature this into a survey, but y'all can start thinking about it from that perspective, and then we'll create a survey and can distribute it out. We'll make sure Christine gets a copy of that.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Thank
Thank
y'all.
you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
You said your parents would be here, right?
Yeah.
Do-
Good one, this is dinner.
Enjoy your dinner.
Yeah, enjoy it.
You can always watch the rest of the meeting on our recording when it's posted.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Tomorrow, right? Okay, listen.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Aaron,
What's up? Do I have a motion, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at, I don't know, 6:12.
Can you clarify that it's the work session that you're adjourning?
I make a motion to adjourn the work session at 6:12.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Vicky, a second by Mike. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
You want to make a comment about when I came in?
Vicky
6:44.
came in at
I did not come in at 6:44.
5:42 PM is when she arrived.
I've got it down. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we need to, someone to make,
Okay.
well, you can just come forward. You don't need to make
Alright. The work session has closed and we will now move into regular session of the Aubrey MDD board meeting on April 9th, 2024 at the Aubrey MDD building. We will now call the meeting to order at 6:13 PM. And I will take roll. To determine if a quorum is present, please stay here when I read your name. Holly Drew, here. Aaron Bogar. Here. Mike Browning.
Here.
Vicky Dunn.
Here.
Jesse Aller.
Here.
Mark Abernowski.
Here.
Tim Heitman.
Here.
All right, everyone is present. We do have somebody else. We have Charles here and
Sure, my name is Tarsha.
Okay.
I'm an Aubrey resident of 2 years and has been involved in a lot of activities.
Thank you so much for being here.
What is your business?
Marketing, but I also I work in Dallas, but I run an entrepreneur center in Dallas.
Oh, excellent. Welcome. Yes. All right. Mike is going to lead us in the communication.
Right. But we're thankful for the day and for the rain and just the ability to be here. Give us wisdom to guide in a judicious manner with an intent, Father, to just do the right things for our community and keep us safe on the travel home. In the Lord's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Before we.
Yes. So there is pizza in the kitchen, if anybody wants some, because we need to eat it. And there's water in the fridge. So if you need to heat the pizza up in the microwave, that's fine too. There's paper plates out there. So help yourself as we go through the meeting if you need to do that.
Are there any community announcements from our group?
Anybody want to do the, Charles, do you want to do the music in the park?
Have the dates with me.
Months.
April,
April.
May, and June.
April 27th. April 27th is the first.
Man, April?
Is it?
It's starting in April.
Is it the fourth one now?
Starting
Yeah.
Are you still doing that? I just heard-
You're doing 3, but we had to start early because the apartment evacuated.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
We won't
Awesome.
have enough time.
Very good. Are there any other announcements? All right, is there anyone here on Zoom call who has citizen input and would like to speak? Okay. We are now moving on to the consent items, which include March meeting minutes and Aubrey Chamber of Commerce lease. Does anyone want to remove an item from consent to discuss later?
I just need to make note that y'all did receive an email with the most up-to-date February financials that y'all had already approved in
Yeah.
March. Nothing changed on the downside, just a switch of an item assignment, and then we had our interest income deposited. So that was all explained in the email, but
All right,
So the-
we do not have March financials due
Yes.
to the P cards are all due around the 8th, 9th, and so they never have time to get the report done and complete, and our interest income comes in as well, so we'll get that in May's meeting.
It's just about as early as we could possibly have.
Yeah.
For a second Tuesday, so.
Well, and we may, I talked to Mike, and we may have to start doing them a month after the fact. It's just easier because he can get all of our deposits in for the interest income. And it's clearer and more complete by the time you get it, or it is complete by the time you get it, if we let him get that interest income.
So they don't really have a monthly financial report to approve, right?
just the changes that of the interest.
February.
Yeah, so that would be the only thing I would do. Do I hear a motion? To approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as indicated.
Second.
I have a motion by Vicky, a second by Jesse. All those in favor? All right, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to our staff reports. Christine?
Request that we move this, after item 5.
Okay, we can do that.
Right
It'll-
before the list.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to Jim Sabonis's report from Hilltop Securities. Jim,
afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just gonna let you know, I'm gonna share the screen. We
Great.
are going to discuss and consider financing options for the purchase of property located at 916 US 377 and High Meadow for 830,000. And Jim Sabonis will present for us. You have his handouts in front of you. And once I share the screen, Jim, you can start.
Okay.
All right.
Bear with me just a second here.
Can everybody hear Jim okay? Rain's going by.
Good evening. It's Jim. Can you see on your screen the Aubrey Municipal Development District debt issuance capacity and process?
Yes.
Well, let me give you a little background first. I think it'll help put it in context. I work for Hilltop Securities, and I've actually worked at the same firm for 31 years. Previously it was for Southwest Company. I've actually done hundreds of sales tax corporations and many in North Texas. So in my career, I've been involved in over 2,500 bond issues. I've been fortunate to represent the city of Aubrey for many years, and I'm very excited about where the city is now and where you're going forward. And I look forward to talking to you about this. I'll also tell you that it seems like it's a busy last 18 months on sales tax corporations, development districts, things of that nature. We've done more sales tax revenue bonds for our communities than I've done in the last 10 years combined. Everyone's trying to buy land for economic development, either to develop parks to use the land for specific purposes or to control its use. And the old saying goes, if you don't buy it now, it's either not going to be available or more expensive. So sales tax bonds are very straightforward. In the state of Texas, first of all, a good thing about our state is that we have very specific authorization built in our state statute how different entities can issue bonds. Whether you're a city, a school district, a sales tax corporation, municipal development district, it indicates exactly what needs to take place. And so, and we'll go through that time frame. But as a result, in the state of Texas, cities and their subsidiary corporation districts have been not defaulted and are well received when we sell debt to investors. So I'm going to start by saying the most important thing that we look at is your sales tax. And why that's important is that as a district, you collect sales tax, and there's nothing you can do to actively change it. You can actually facilitate growth, but we can't change our sales tax rate. At the city, in times of need, they can change their rate, they can raise their rate. But in ours, we just have a specific rate, and we collect based on the economic nature of our community. So when we look at sales tax, the standard way that bonds are sold throughout the United States is that they look at 12 of the last 18 months, your highest sales tax. Traditionally, they're the last 12 months. So I actually was working on a presentation that one of my partners, junior partners, is giving to another city tonight, where they had an unusual true up with the controller last year. And so we had to actually not believe, we couldn't really use the last 12 months. We had to interpret what a normal month would be. And when we look at the sales tax, the rating agencies who we would go out and ask for an investment grade rating, the investors who buy our debt and evaluate it, they'll look at the makeup of sales tax. Is there a concentration? Is that concentration subject to potential vulnerability? What is involved in that sales tax? Now, I use an example. I've in my career worked with two communities on either side of a major federal highway. One had a Walmart, and the Walmart actually left retail center, moved across the street to the other community. Not only did they lose the sales tax from that Walmart, but that overall retail center declined significantly. 10 years later, after their incentive was up, they moved back to the original community and happened to the second one. So we want to look at it. But in your community, and I'm very familiar, I've spent a lot of time over my life. I know because I've known a number of people in your community and have been involved in horses. So, you know, it's really convenience and necessities. You know, I'm not aware of any major, retailer that is vulnerable to leaving, any major manufacturing direct sale company that we're concerned about. We have a very diversified economy. So I think that two things. One is that it's a solid, but more importantly, it's growing. And I would assume that our growth would track very closely to our rooftops and what's taking place in overall economic development. And you can see we've had significant growth, 12% over the last year over year. You know, when you look at our 3-year average, it's 26%. And I based on my understanding what's taking place with the work that we do on the long-term planning community, I expect that you'll have significant growth going forward. And maybe, hopefully, we've seen with some communities when you hit certain traffic counts, population counts, or new thoroughfares, you start to see some jumps. But the reason I say that is right now we're using 918,999 as what we would consider your last 12 months. Every month you go forward, and if we started a process, and I use an example, we were talking to a community earlier today that wants to fund as much money as they can for land development. And I was telling them that here's our capacity today, and based on our expectation of interest rates, we move forward. It's going to take us a couple months to get organized for the sale and go through the legal process. Our expectation is that you can see on a month-to-month basis, we would expect you'd have growth. Now, a little bit, but it'll be enough. In their case, $30,000 of growth over the next 2 months will probably provide them the capacity to fund what they're trying to do. The second thing we look at, though, is, and I'll come back to that, is your budget. But here's what your capacity is from a legal perspective and a credit perspective. And based on our sales tax, you know, what we're going to target is trying to get an investment grade rating. And there's a little bit difference between our sales tax and the city's ad valorem tax. Our goal is not to have a AAA rating, it's to get an investment grade rating. And the way we get the investment grade rating is we have a dependable, growing diversified sales tax. We issue debt based on 1.25 coverage. And what that means is the debt that we divide our 919,000, you divide it by 1.25, and you can see 733,000 or so is what our debt service is. So we have a cover in there. Secondly, that we have an additional bonds test, and the additional bonds test would be the new debt and old debt, any maximum year of amortization, we would be able to cover by 1.25 times. So that would be our additional bonds test. The next thing that we do is, and you'll see in the source and uses, is because our sales tax is there's vulnerability, and we have tornadoes in Texas, and I've actually had a major mall closed for 9 months because of a tornado. We have to fund a debt service reserve. And so we would fund a debt service reserve with bond proceeds, and we would set that aside. It's a 1-year reserve. That's where we are today in our growth. And I will say that as we evolve and we become larger and have more sales tax, a couple things take place. One is that we can start reducing our maximum, our additional bonds test. And I'm going to use an example, one off the top of my head, because we're working on a project we've done a lot of sales tax issues for Grand Prairie, Texas. You know, years ago, 20 years ago, they had a structure like this. Today, they might have a 110 additional bonds test, and they occasionally push up against it because they fund a lot of park and major venue projects, and they don't have to fund a debt service reserve up front. What they have is what we call a snap-in reserve. And what it would say is that we have a coverage ratio 1:15, and if we fall below our stated coverage ratio, we'll actually start accumulating a cash reserve from our excess cash that we have on hand, and we'll do that within a 4-year or 5-year period. So, but right now, this is kind of the standard we have. I will say that when we do this process with the investment grade rating, right now it might be about a 50-50 situation. We apply for, when I mean investment grade rating, I'm thinking we would get a BBB, maybe an A minus. Over time, we'll approach what the city's ratings are in the AA category. And then as the city climbs up in ratings, we'll climb up with them. But right now we'll be somewhere in the lower investment grade. But the good thing about lower investment grade is it opens us to the institutional funds. The second thing about the institutional investment grade is that we apply for bond insurance. Right now, there's 3 or 4 firms that will offer to insure our bonds. And as a result, what we would do is we would submit to all of them a credit package, and then have them, 1, qualifies for insurance, and 2, bid for the insurance. And what the pricing of insurance would be, right now I show a budget interest rate of 6%. And let's say that represents a BBB 23-year average life transaction with 30-year overall amortization. If we go to a AA, it might save us 60 or 70 basis points. So we're at 530. Now, they know we're at 530. Their trading desks understand that. And so the way they bid, they'll take about 50% they will charge us about 50% of the benefit we receive. And then they compete against each other, whether it's 40%, 39, 52%. But that's how we'll pay fee. In fact, we have to demonstrate to the Attorney General of Texas that what our cost savings would be because of insurance. And one thing that you should be aware of is that every debt issue is reviewed and approved by the Attorney General's Municipal Bond Department to make sure that it's legally implemented correctly. All proceedings, all actions were done. In fact, in your first issue, what will take place is we'll actually also have to submit your creation documentation, and they'll actually give what's called a P letter. And to investors, what it means is the district was valid and appropriately created. The sales tax is valid, created, and we have a binding pledge. They also indicate is unique that the debt can, based on today's numbers that we submit to them, the debt, we can actually pay debt service. They don't provide a credit rating or that in the future that it'll pay, but that we have the ability to pay and we've done everything correctly. And to me, it's important. Many states don't have this. It's why you hear about municipal bond defaults in California and New Jersey. There's places around the country where I've worked where you sell bonds and then you go to a lawyer's office 3 days later, like a real estate closing. And after working in Texas, I've learned to realize there's a validity to having that process to tell the citizens that you as a board, we as your professionals have done everything appropriately. And investors appreciate it. Again, any bond that we sell, whether it's BBB or AA insured rating, it'll sell at a lower interest rate than something other parts of the country for a couple of reasons. One, we have a positive economy. Our economy is growing and expected to be stronger even in the future. Two, we have the Attorney General's review and approval process. So this transaction anticipates what I've got here is considered a taxable transaction. And what I mean by taxable is that when we sell municipal bonds, we can sell taxable or tax exempt. And taxable means that we tend to buy property and we may use it for private purposes. We may lease it to a business, we might sell it. It's very common for industrial parks to purchase land and build it. And so that transaction is taxable. In some cases, and again, a presentation I put together earlier today, one of my clients was going to do a hybrid taxable and tax exempt. And what I mean by that is that we divided out what the public infrastructure would be, water, sewer, and roads. That would be public property owned ultimately by the city and maintained by the city, but funded by the sales tax corporation. And what was land, and we funded the land acquisition in a taxable, and we did the infrastructure in a tax exempt basis. But in this case, my understanding that it's land. Excuse me for just 1 minute. So I've used a kind of a BBB taxable rate here, and we've funded based on your 12 of your last 18 months sales tax. As a result, here's where we'd come out with. We'd be able to fund just under $10 million of bonds. We would be able to fund a project fund of $8,880,000. We deposit our debt service reserve. We have budgeted financing costs, which would involve legal counsel, your bond counsel, your board counsel, your financial advisor, rating agent fee, the Attorney General's review fee, the administrative documentation that we draft for the offering documents. And then we sell to underwriters. We actually indicate, in this case, an underwriter's discount of 1.5%. But when my expectation, unless there's something I don't know at the time or my opinion changes, is the best way to sell these would just be through a competitive bid process. We've done that a number of times with the city recently, and the competitive bid would be that we'd have SEC registered offering document. We would have it rated. We may or may not have bond insurance as part of that process. It would be dispersed to all the eligible buyers of municipal bonds, and they would bid on it, and you'd have that process. And we set this up where, depending on what the best way for each individual investor to bid on the bonds, they can buy what's called premium bonds or discount bonds. And I'll use an example. When interest rates are rising, unusually, investors would prefer to have premium bonds. And the reason is because from a financial mathematical calculation, when they mark those bonds to market, there's a less of a markdown than on discount bonds. But when interest rates are falling, they'll revert to discount bonds. And what I mean by discount bonds is that we'll sell 9,970,000. And they would have a discount of 124,000 for that, with the whole concept that a fund would rather spend $4,992 for a $5,000 bond denomination than pay $5,030. Now they'll pay $5,030 when interest rates are going up, but we give them the flexibility. And the goal for us is to say, what is the lowest principal and interest that we need to fund the amount of proceeds that we want? And so we look for the lowest principal and interest, and we give them that flexibility. But in this case, again, that we're looking at about your debt capacity now will be a project fund of 8.9 million. Now, I would say that we apply for insurance. This would be your first issue out of the bat. And I could see in a year or two, I'd be a stronger affirmative what would take place. But we will apply for insurance. And if we get insurance, not only would it lower your interest rate, that might give you some more capacity, but there's a second aspect of it. The insurance companies typically will also fund what's called a surety bond. And what the surety bond does is, while their bond insurances does principal interest payments over time, the surety bond replaces a reserve fund. So we'll write our documents to indicate that we'll have a 1-year debt service reserve fund, and we'll either fund it by cash or we'll fund it by a surety bond. And it's at you, the board's option. And if we do have that means that we would pay a fee, let's say hypothetically, of $30,000 for the surety. And result, they would commit their AA insurance and surety, and we would result in us having $700,000 more in the project deposit fund. Now we'd be up to somewhere in the 9.5 million. So I kind of use this slide. I put this together a little bit different than I usually do. I wanted to talk about how bonds are structured and how they're sold, since this would be your first major issue. In summary, what your debt capacity is on a taxable basis at the moment, based on realistic but conservative assumptions, is about funding of about 8.9 million. So I'm going to stop for a minute and ask if there's any questions on what I've covered so far.
I've got a few.
Go for it.
So if it's a taxable interest rate, what happens if we later have property that's not subject to taxable? It's going to go to a government use and not private entity use.
Well, that's a good point. And what we can do, and we will build this optionality into it, is that in the future, we have potentially refunded on a tax exempt basis. So the change of purpose can be done, and we can do that refunding. And let me tell you what the benchmark is on taxable use. Taxable status for a bond issue is done by a kind of a threefold test. Does 5% of the proceeds benefit a private entity? Does 5% of the revenue received, are you leasing that facility for the based on the amortization, is over 5% of the payment, or is 5% of the use of that project? So it's a very small hurdle to get to taxable, but if you convert it back to tax exempt, and what I mean by that, hypothetically, you sell 50% of the project, convert 50% of the land into a public use. We set these projects up. I've kind of explored, and we've been forefront of doing this, where when we sell 30-year bonds right now, the market would have what we call a 10-year call. And that 10-year call means that the investors can keep the bonds for 10 years minimum. It's how they actually calculate their interest rate that they bid on the bonds. They calculate it to the call. And that's kind of an equilibrium point. So if this 30-year issue had a 66% interest rate, if we try to get an 8-year economic call, that we had the right at our choice to put the bonds back to them and refund them because rates were lower, it would cost us hypothetically 6.25%. In fact, some of our very large, AA, AAA issuers we actually look at when rates were high, we put matrices together, like what a different call features would be. So 10 years right now would be considered equilibrium point, which means that if you go shorter, it will cost you an interest rate. If you go 11 years or 12 years, you don't receive a lower interest rate. So it's kind of like the no cost equilibrium point. But what we've done in our other projects, and it's been accepted, is we'll put in what's called an extraordinary call. And it means that if you purchase a piece of property and you sell that property, that when you receive the proceeds of the sale, you have the right at the board's option to call at par the amount of bonds represented by that portion of it. So hypothetically, we've actually moved forward a few years. We sold 50% of it. We could look at what is the 50% of the bonds that remaining outstanding, and we can apply the proceeds to pay that off. We don't have to, but we have. And it's kind of interesting because we start putting it in as cities start growing rapidly and start really churn through buying land. I could use a community we're working that's really active in economic development where they're in the process of buying and selling land, but we've had that process. They've never actually, because they want their cash to buy more land. So, but it'll be there. So 10-year for economic refunding purposes. And then we'd have the extraordinary call at par based on when you sell property. Now, going back to your point is that if we had a transaction that you change the use, we talk to bond counsel and we would approach it with a refunding, and the refunding bonds would be tax exempt.
Okay, and then I may have been jumping ahead slightly, but I noticed both scenarios, you've got 30-year amortization of both budgeted at 6%, though one is significantly lower than the par amount significantly lower than the other. Yeah. Is there any advantage to us? Like, would we get a better bond rating at a lower total amount coming out? Or, and you kind of answered a question about based on duration as well, but it sounds like 10 years is really your hard floor.
Yeah. Well, let me say that I think from you that we would have minimum. I think again, for us to get investment grade rating, it's gonna be based on your sales tax and the 125 coverage. And if you sell bonds, and let's say hypothetically we come out of the market with a 2 times coverage, but we have 125 as an additional bonds test in your growing community, you'll have the same rating as if you had pushed the rate to 125. And the reason being is that you have the ability to sell additional bonds, and you want that flexibility for other projects. So the rating agencies will say they'll rate you the same. There'll be no difference whether we're or well we're at the 1.25. Now, again, some of my AAA issuers, they have $20 million sales tax. You know, they never get to their additional bonds level. So, so if they're issuing there at a 1.6 or 1.8, it might make some difference. But for you, our assumption is that at any time we might get the call and say, how much can we fund it if we want to buy additional land? So the rating agencies will not rate you that. Now, as far as the maturity, 2 things I'd say about that. If your coverage, if you have coverage at 1.25 on a 10 or 20-year bond issue, or 1.25 on a 30-year issue, the rating agencies will not look any difference. They're looking at what your coverage is based on the maximum debt service any year. And so a shorter amortization with equal coverage is not going to change how the rating is. And one thing I will say, we did 30 years for capacity. The first 25 years of my career, I've told people that I never issued a bond over 20 years, with the exception of some 0% interest rate bonds for some of my disadvantaged communities that were subsidized by federal or state grants. We just didn't do that. The last few years, we've sold a lot of 20 and 25-year bonds, 25 and 30-year bonds. And in sales tax, we can run the interest rate variances, because it will change, because each serial maturity will have its own interest rate. This would be considered the average rate. But we have a pretty flat yield curve right now, and moving from 30 to 20 years, it might bring you down 30 or 40 basis points. But my experience is, to maintain flexibility, always want the ability to issue. It's more common that clients come to me, like a call I had earlier, that someone's got a sales tax corporation. We issued $11 million for them to purchase land about 8 months ago. They've got a contract to sell for 24, but it's not gonna close for a year. They need to buy 16 more million. So it's a question, how much can we get at any time? And until it becomes a point where you're like South Lake, where you bought all your land and you move to maybe a more of an operating support entity. And in their case, there was a time when I sold senior bonds, subordinate 115 coverage bonds, and sub-subordinate at one time, so they could buy all the land they could for their purposes. We paid off those bonds, and now they just provide operational support for most of the community. But in that case, and let me, so I would say we can explore different options when you have a finite amount you want, whether it's 25 or 30 or 20 years. The one thing I would say is and we'll do. I work for you. If I'll do what as I am directed. Yet same time, I would say most entities that are sales tax, because you get amortized every 10 years, they generally don't, because it might limit your ability to have additional bonds, because again, you can't change your sales tax collection percentage. I'd like to move on to the second part before I get off this, but this is the legal process from a covenant. The second part is your budget. And in here, I actually looked at your 24 budget. And so in your budget, currently you have 860,000 of revenue. You've got your operating expenses, you've got your cash flow, debt service. We'd be short. So what we can fund has to match up also what our operational budget would be. And I'm going to use an example. I spent a lot of time with someone earlier today that was a very similar situation, but their sales tax was growing at approximately 20% per year. And so they were in a situation like this. And the two things that they decided to do were,
Jim?
yes,
I'm sorry, what page do you want us looking at? You want us looking at
page 4. I apologize, page 4.
Okay.
Thank you.
I apologize. Did my screen move forward to page 4?
No, you're good. I'm on page 4, but feel free to tell me when to switch the slide.
I'll do that. I apologize. I did. So
you're fine.
this is the same transaction, but and again, here's your budget of revenues. You have operating expenses, and so then we look at how much cash flow. So from a budgeting perspective, this year we can pay next year's debt service. So I'm going to go back 2 pages and say, how much did we grow in debt service? So we've been growing. It looks like I'm on page 2 now, maybe $100,000 a year. So, so a couple questions would be, when we look at next year and you go through a budget, would you be able to close, if you wanted to fund as much as you can? Do you have the ability to close your operating, modify your 2024 budget when you look at 2025 by saying, we expect to get $100,000 more sales tax? In our budget, we have maybe one-time grants of $120,000 that for 1 year we'll hold back because we've got our new land acquisition. Do we have some cash on hand that we can get through a year or two to do that? So what I want to say is that, well, that is your legal limit. From a budget perspective, it would take some thoughtfulness based on your current budget. Are there some discretionary things that could be tightened up and not needed to be spent? Do you have some cash on hand that could get you to a year or two to grow into your budget? And so, am I making sense of what I'm trying to demonstrate here?
Yes.
And that's actually the difference between the 2 scenarios. This tells you what we can fund, and in a fast-growing community with sales tax growing, and and when you're doing an issue, sometimes we push to what you can do, and then have to think back how we modify our budget as we go forward. And then let me compare it to the second issue. And I'm actually going to go to page 6 now. And if you're on page 6, you'll see that I took your same revenue and operating budget, ended up with 477,000. So 477,000, the assumption that there's no expected revenue growth in sales tax. There's no ability to find efficiency in your budget. Now you look at what your capacity is at that level. And so that's what scenario 2 is. Scenario 2 is taking not based on sales tax coverage, but taking based on ability to pay. And so at 477,000 or so for 30 years, we'd fund at the 6% range about 6.5 million, generating about 5.7 million, excuse me, in a project fund with a debt service reserve and the similar dynamics. So I put this in kind of contrast, how you'd look at this process with the thought, the very dynamic requirement, if you're trying to buy land, to also think how this could affect your operating budget, or have no effect on your operating budget, if that makes sense.
All right.
Any questions or comments on this thought here?
I assume that we're probably gonna end up buying some land that's we qualify for tax exempt. This is my first meeting, so-
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Well, I'm kind of asking the group, this is my first meeting, but I assume that some of the money from the bonds is gonna go towards a tax exempt purchase of land, or not really?
It's possible. I mean, in certain cases, we might be like, we want that property, and that's why I asked, like, what happens if we later go, oh gosh, you know what? Some of this has really got to go to a road or
Right.
what have you.
Infrastructure.
Because the difference in interest is about 130 basis points lower. It's about 4.7. So if we think that, let me put this, what would be the disadvantage of doing this straight, all taxable, and then having to go back and repurpose it, change whatever, versus kind of carving out from the start and saving some interest right up front?
Well, let me say that what we would do is two things. One is, it depends on, first of all, on what the percentage of your total project fund is going to be taxable or tax exempt.
Right.
And with the thought is that and I'm using a hypothetical. So let's say we were at 600,000 of tax exempt proceeds, 5 million of land cost. I would tell you that it's not going to be that efficient to break out a small portion, of that. Now they would be rated the same. They'll be sold in the same offering memorandum, a taxable issue A, a tax exempt issue A, a taxable B. But we would look at what the costs are and what we expect, a very retail oriented amortization of pricing of that, because what would happen, obscure aspect of the IRS would be that we have to have the taxable debt out as long as our tax exempt debt when we're doing the same project. And so what you would think you could do would be to take all the tax exempt principal and put it to the back end and put the taxable principal up front. But we have to have equal amortization and annually do it simultaneously. It's a secure aspect of these type of projects. And as a result, what we do is you'd have a strung out at 600,000. Now, if you're told 2 million, 3 million versus 3 million, now you have two efficient transactions. And we could do something of that nature. That's from a starting point. So when you look at, again, typically when we look at industrial park or a land acquisition that's going to have, the thing is, what is the variable? And we'd actually just modeled out and we can get pretty accurate when you get to an actual pricing to look at what the difference is and show you that difference that you'd have at that time. Does that make sense? And
Yes,
and to me, I'm always favor of pushing as much tax exempt as can, if it can be done. Now, if we did the taxable issue and all of a sudden 3 years from now, you become has a tax exempt purpose, we look at, can we actually structure that? But here's the issue. We've got a 10-year call provision. So intriguingly, we could do a tax exempt, but our software program we helped develop, it's pretty standard for us, is to look at and say, okay, we want to do refunding today. We're going to have to escrow proceeds to pay our payments. What would be the investment rate? And I'll use an example. Today, it would work because tax exempt rates and taxable rates on the short side are pretty high, flat overall. But there's a consideration of the variance of tax exempt rates and taxable rates and how we fund the escrow and things of that nature. So it's not automatically, okay, we pay it off on the third year when we've changed use. We would have to do some calculations to say, where the market is today, we issue tax exempt bonds. We call our taxable portion, we issue tax exempt bonds. We have to take those proceeds, invest them in an escrow to pay until the call date. So we go through that mathematics, and we do that we've done that a number of times. But in fact, this year we had two very large. I guess it was we did their actual principal payments were $215, but the IRS lets us refund debt up to 90 days prior to call date. We actually did them in November. So we had two very large venue projects that we converted to tax them from taxable originally, and it saved them millions and millions of dollars. So, we can do that. But that would be the consideration there. And then say lastly, again, in the case that we're talking about, it would be an after the fact situation. And generally the standard would be, if we think it's likely that we would have start and have tax weeks and go tax exempt, we just move forward. And I will say that, one of the things that we give you as a board will, as part of the issue, have to do a couple affidavits to the IRS. And so I caution my clients when they purchase land and they say, oh, it's going to be for tax exempt purpose. But in the back of their mind, they're thinking about selling it for a private purpose, because we have to say what do we think it's a tax exempt purpose? There'll be an affidavit, and even if it's unexpected that tax exempt purpose is sold to a private entity, we convert our tax exempt bonds now to taxable, and we still have to do that call feature. But we've done that before. I've actually unfortunately been involved with a out of state city that decided to buy a golf course that was going into bankruptcy, and they funded it, and it never worked the way it should be. And we've actually they sold part of the property along with specific zoning to do a mixed use nice retail center, and kept 9 holes open. They sold the land that the 9 holes to pay all the debt off, to free it up. But we had to pay that debt off and issued out taxable. It's a long story, but it's one of those things that we can do. So, we would talk about that when you get your land and come up with some processes. And so to me, my strategy is, and I recommend you, is to try to find what can be permanently tax exempt and do it, and be aware that, we'll just, if we can move to a tax exempt status on something that'll be taxable, we'd do that.
Okay, we have one question for you.
Okay, so if we were looking at scenarios where it was less exciting of a price tag, if we wanted to explore like more conventional loan products, is that something you advise on as well? If we weren't looking at bond routes? Or,
So say that one more time again. Oh, the question was, are you looking at a more conventional loan? Well,
Yes.
let me say a couple things about that, in that, 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 um, that if you went to a conventional loan, it wouldn't be involved, if you didn't go through the Attorney General's approval process that's in the statutes, Attorney General wouldn't give an opinion of it. And so what would take place is if you had a private loan outstanding and later you wanted to do a public offering, that in general, our experience has been you have to pay off the private loan. But the problem with the payoff private loan is you can't use refunding bond proceeds to pay off a bond issue that was not approved by the Attorney General to begin with. Now, I will say that there is a process where obligations of an entity can be approved by the Attorney General through a validation lawsuit, but that's a complex process. So I would say that most of my clients that have gone out and done local loans, again, the terms and conditions, depending on each local institution. In our case, our land is not pledged to our loan. We have sales tax or specific additional bonds requirements that we determine and our investors don't. And we can refund them and issue additional debt that would be on a parity basis. On the case of yours, I would say, all I say is be cautious, because in some cases, it's become, it eliminates some of the ability in the future to do bond type financing.
So in summary, if we do a conventional loan route, we'd have to pay that loan off, or if we had an outstanding loan to pay off, we could not do a bond issue.
You could.
I mean, it would be a
Couldn't pay it with-
process,
Couldn't pay a bond.
right? We'd have to still pay it off, pay off the debt without.
Well, and I'll use an example. And again, this is an extreme case. There's a high profile Central Expressway, 75 fast growing community that had a 4A corporation, and we represent them and actually represent their sales tax 4A and 4Bs. They wanted to purchase some land. I made the presentation at the time. They decided to use the local bank. They had some board membership and wanted to work with the banks. Our suggestion is, and this is one thing I would say to you, is that, and I'll come back to this, and one way to do with the local bank is, and this is a common thing with Grove City, we can structure something and offer it to the local bank and negotiate a market price on your behalf. So if a goal is yours to work with a local institution, and we've done this in many times, and previously we did it with the city with some tax notes, is to, kind of come up with a structure that is preferred and appropriate for the district here, and follow the appropriate Attorney General approval processes, and then have kind of a negotiated market price with the bank. And there's cases where we've done that successfully, though. The thing with the banks is, on a fixed rate basis, not very often they like to go longer than 10 to 12 years. They, in special cases, we can get, especially larger things, a little bit longer, but what we usually see is like 10 to 12 years is the standard that you want to see on something. But again, you can work with the bank. And I'll use an example where the corporation, again, their executive worked with banks, and they did a couple bank transactions, and it was interesting. We had our first conference call where they wanted to borrow a lot of money, and they had short-term loans that they wanted to refund so they could get access longer amortization overall, and it was smiling in my office because the bond counsel told them some of their loans that were considered tax exempt were probably taxable, and they might want to consider filing a proactively with the IRS and paying their penalties, and that those loans, had covenants that didn't allow additional bonds without the bank's approval, had lockbox situations, and so ultimately we did not issue that bond issue, and it wasn't a year to maybe 5 years later where they were able to sell some land and get cash and just pay off the loans they had. That now we've funded a bunch of things for them, but again, so I mean, I think there's like three areas: standard, open market, public sale. I think that's structured based on the state statutes, but negotiated with a local financial institution. And then the third is directly working with a financial institution with their more traditional loan processes.
Okay, thank you. And so then the next step is the schedule of events.
Well, yeah, and so we're having our presentation today, and typically, what I would recommend is that a lot of our has the ability to work in executive session, but my thought would be you have an idea of what your capacity is, and
Right.
we stand firm and committed to executing what we've indicated or better. So taking that into consideration, really step one that I didn't put here, step one is really getting a contract for your land acquisition, a contract, because that contract will have to be submitted as part of the proceedings as we go forward with the bond. And and in the state of Texas, talking to your bond counsel, the bond counsel, the city council have to approve ultimately your debt issuance to make it valid. And so the thought would be that you actually have a final price, $7 million. I'm going to use the example. We put a final plan, and that plan would maybe have some of the structuring amortization options you talk about. You as a board would say, we like plan B there. We want you to go ahead and implement it. You approve it. Charles and Mike and your bond counsel and his financial advisor will work to actually execute that. And a reimbursement resolution, not as much for land acquisition, but hypothetically where that's used is once you start the process to issue bonds, in some cases, an entity wants to spend some money towards a project. In your case, it could be environmental or architectural type spending funds. This allows you to use your unrestricted cash to fund it and to reimburse yourself when the bonds close, if you choose to do that. And then step two I have is just an informational meeting to the council of what you're going to do. In your case, as a community, I know you're very close. You may have individual discussions and not wanting to do a formal presentation to the city council, but my thought is that ultimately, since the council has to approve it, it's good to let them know that's going forward. I've never been involved where they withheld approval, but it's just kind of a standard practice that we have. Then it would take us approximately 6 to 8 weeks to organize the sale. It would involve preparing an offering memorandum, submitting the offering memorandum to the rating agency, along with a financial background package, achieving an investment grade rating, and then sending that package, credit package, to the insurance firm and looking to be qualified for insurance. And then about, we target like 10 days. And for a first time issuer, we want to get it out maybe if we could 2 weeks early, distribute the offering document, very similar to a stock prospectus, out to investors. And then we organize a competitive bid process that would take place the morning of the approval meeting. And so we get the ratings, we have the offering document, it's all published, and we receive competitive bids electronically through an industry standard portal that's in the process of switching to an internet portal today. But we have that, and then we would, as your financial advisor, talk to your staff to tell you, is the pricing fair, appropriate, and reasonable. Present that to you at a meeting, along with order authorizing issuance of sale. And then what takes place is that this is where you and the council have to agree on how to overlap your meetings, just based on experience. Usually the development district or a corporate board will call a special meeting before the council meeting, because we have to have it on the same date. So either the council is gonna have to move to meet after your board meeting, or you're gonna have to move to meet before them, because the potential purchaser doesn't have a valid purchase agreement until the council passes their resolution. So we usually have the sales tax corporations meet, half hour before council meeting to present a single item approval, and then to present that to the council for their approval. Then the documents are executed and submitted to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General allows 15 business days, typically from receipt of executed final documents to the approval. And then once we have approval, it takes a couple days to close, but usually it's like a 28-day cycle that would take place. So, I put this in here that, from the, 60 days, based on a monthly meeting schedule from you giving the authority to having a sale, 30 days of close. This is a random. Now, in emergencies, we can shorten that, but it's a little bit easier shorten on an ongoing issuer than a first time issuer because of the process. But we can do that too, if necessary. And I say that because when you sign your contract, it'll give you an estimate of how many days to put in to allow between contract and closing.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim. I think, does anybody else have any questions?
What effect would our reserves have on any of this? I don't see that factored in this. You look solely at our budget amount from each year.
And well, let me say, like, and that's important. I like the question you have there. And tell me what you mean by your reserves. I'd be interested to, can you give me a little background what you're talking about?
Well, our current reserve is probably twice what our budget is showing on this. So I want to know how that might factor into this.
Well, again, here's where I think the Raisies would say that those reserves wouldn't provide a significant credit benefit. Again, the reserve that they're looking for is a designated single purpose debt service reserve, which we have fully funded. So that's what gives you credit support. The expectation that your operating reserve that you have will be that you can spend it at any time if need be, whether it's for a project or operation, but it's not a designated reserve with facilities for it. Now, when we talk to the city, the city, its reserves have a bigger importance on the overall credit screen because they have operations. And so, when they look at their reserves, they'll look at two things. They're really, city's a business. So they look at two things that are very important. And actually they're two most important things in overall credit. When you look at a city, is their ability to consistently generate positive, budget accurately, and have positive cash flow from conservative budgeting that's exceeded in actuality from their general fund. And do they have a general fund policy that said that is adequate for the nature of the community, for emergencies or unforeseen expenses? But they have to deal with operations, HVAC going out, any variety of things, losing I had someone that lost two fire trucks in a bushfire this last year, which is amazing. Nobody got hurt, but they actually lost 2 units, and it may or may not be a church thing. So they look at that and say, how are you operating your business? And the city has been complimented on its positive budgeting and conservative budgeting and its cash position. But there's not as much evaluation from a management perspective because we don't really have any operational responsibilities. You receive revenues, you may have grants, you have some operating expenses, but there's nothing really, to me, and again, I could be wrong, but I'm not aware of any really operational responsibilities you have. And so, your cash balances, they're really more from the operation perspective than for the debt service.
Right. Okay.
Because again, my experience is that they would acknowledge that you have it, but they won't give you any credit for it. And let me even take further, and I'll use the city, for example. This is a hypothetical. I don't have their statistics right in front of me, but let's say that a city says, I'm going to have a 120-day fund balance, which represents 120 days of operational expenses at any time. And we go to the agencies, and that city has 140 days, and they've been consistently hovering between 120 and 140 days as they spend money as they accumulate money over time. Now you move forward and you take a different city, and they've got 120 day, but they have 200 days. They won't receive any higher credit score from the agencies because they realize that anytime that 80 days excess could be spent on a one-time thing, and they come down to 120. So in fact, they'd be cautious because, and there are actually, I'm not going to point out the cities where when they had excess cash over their fund balance, there's 1 or 2 cities in North Texas that gave refunds to their taxpayers. And I did an analysis for one of my clients about their program, and 86% of the refund went to their top 10 businesses, not to the citizens that live there. So so when you think about it from your perspective, having cash, I don't think it is a credit from a bond issue, but it sure gives you flexibility when you want to accomplish strategic initiatives.
Right. Awesome.
Thank you.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Again, Charles, please, any follow-up questions, he can direct them to me. And I want to thank Charles and Mike. They actually guided me and educated me about your organization, and I hope this hit the major points.
It did. Great. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I'm gonna go back to screen share so Alicia can see some of these things. Alicia, I got people in my office right when I was getting ready to send this to you, so I didn't.
That's okay.
And
All right.
an announcement that Aaron made coffee in the kitchen.
Oh, yay. Yeah, if we need coffee for caffeine, anybody can go get that. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Can you see that, Alicia?
Yeah. Oh, what is? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Sure. Go ahead.
What is the purchase of the property going to be used for?
We're getting to that on the next item. There's actually an agenda. Charles, there's oh, great. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Are you ready for the next item? Okay.
Yes.
So we are going to discuss and consider, sorry, next item is 2. We are
Well,
going.
I think you're still on number 1 because you have to decide on
right.
the financing.
Thank you. Need the coffee. So you heard Jim's presentation. The property is $830,000. Our projected income is for 2023 sales tax is $940,000, and the interest income projection,
That's on this page right here, guys.
yeah, is $145,000. And hold on really quick, I just realized I had two versions of these. I'd had to update one, so let me open the correct one. The item two, sorry, I don't know why that didn't go. All right. Item two. So if you look at your budget that I gave you, that is from Mike today. So we have a budget right now, or re-estimated budget of $1,085,000 for, as of today, the re-estimated actuals. That's on your sheet that he submitted. So we actually have an interest income that's accumulating every year of about 145,000 just in the interest income. And our estimated went up from our original budget that Jim was looking at. It went up almost $100,000. So
What would we base the re-estimation on?
the sales
Is it
tax
rolling
actuals,
12 months, or is it year to year 12 months?
he based it on the actuals that came in last year plus what we've been getting this year. So he's estimating, yeah. No,
It's an estimate based on your budget, October 1 to today.
but we've been seeing an increase in that quarterly amount, so,
Sales tax is 2 months behind, so.
yeah. So you can't know until November, actually, of what we end up with September 30th, but we did actually have a really good last quarter, so that is, the information that you have to consider for what you are going to be looking at in your purchase and your ability to purchase, whether you use your cash, whether you loan it. Alicia, do you want to touch on some of that discussion regarding the process with bonds versus using cash or
Sure.
loans?
So as you heard, the bonding is quite a process for getting the financing approval, going through the Attorney General's office, and then your, your meeting process for approval. So I think that's going to be something that the board needs to consider when you're looking at the purchase of the property that's before you tonight and the turnaround timetable for your contract, on that. And then also, as they pointed out, it does require some very strict review from the Attorney General's office. So if you do choose to bond, the motion for the purchase will have to change. I'll have to give you some motion language, just to amend some of our whereas provisions and some of the statutory references that we use in that resolution, to do the bonding process. So if you choose to use your cash and make the purchase, the resolution is okay as is. But if you choose to go forward with the bonding, we will have to just tweak it a little bit, and I can give you motion language to do that. But and you might get some more information from Charles regarding the timeline for the actual purchase and the seller's position on that. But I think that's going to be something that the board pretty strongly needs to consider if you decide to do bond issuance.
So when we get to item 2, we have our actual cash in the bank balance now so that y'all can make that decision. But as Alicia said, we are still held to the statute the state statute for chapter 377, plus there's sections that apply to us under type B EDC as an MDD. So the purpose of what we're using the building for, which was to expand and promote business development and retain businesses and jobs, that is not necessarily in a section that really is qualified for bonding, is as qualified for bonding. It would be a little bit more, is that correct, Alicia? Am I explaining?
Yeah, bond counsel, I had an opportunity to speak with your bond counsel today, and she was very concerned that the Attorney General wouldn't approve under 505-151, which we're currently using to support the purchase, and recommended 505-158. So that would just be the change. Should you go forward with bonding? If you don't go forward with bonding, it doesn't require that Attorney General approval, and you'd be okay to stay as you are.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Is this just land or an operating business or structure?
It-
Or is it?
It is on Highway 377. There is a structure and a business there, and there's also land that is behind it that runs behind another business that has access, could have access from High Meadow.
Did you get the?
Yeah,
It was-
oh, that's, okay, that's the thing.
Yeah, there's two lots.
Yeah, this kind of goes into detail about what the lot we're talking about.
Okay. I did see that when I was.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So given that there is expansion gonna be happening and right of way taken away on Highway 377, there's about 3 businesses there that will need some additional access on the backside, which would be the land that we're looking at. And so it would give them that ability to have that access and not have to consider maybe moving or closing because they wouldn't have access and they're losing a driveway. So
What are you talking about?
in terms of the purpose of the purchase for the land in the building. We can also use it for infrastructure support to surround it.
Create an easement essentially for another business, just to like to take right.
Yeah, she had asked what it was being used for. So what was purchased for? So again, as Jesse's motion, y'all, for the process was to promote and develop future business growth and retain businesses and jobs. So that is our purpose that we would be buying land for, which is allowed in the state statute.
Gotcha.
Because we do have restrictions. Alicia and I've had a lot of discussions over all this. We do have restrictions on, as a municipal development district, on what we are allowed to purchase land for and under which sections. So we fall typically under, they compare it to the type B EDC. So that's.
Do you have any questions?
So based on that interest rate, I guess we have $3 million or something like that, it's only 4%.
Then I gotta look at the next slide. In the bank right now, we have 3 million, you're very good, $3,014,983.17.
There's a
That's why
there's
you
a
were in
hold on part of that,
finance, so.
2.8.
So that's our balance in the banks today. Part of it is our interest fund from the reserves that we had invested, and then the rest is the income from sales.
If we decided to bond, let's just say, if whatever got approved, that we thought the AG would approve it. With that money from the bond, is the bond money only for that specific property? So it's not like you could say, I want 4 million, and then you could use whatever was left over for other property. It's specifically for this.
Tied to the project. Everything we do has to be tied to the
Not
project.
the project, but it's not collateral.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we are restricted to,
You don't have your collateral, your debt is guaranteed by the tax.
yeah.
As opposed to a conventional loan where the collateral is the property.
Be the property.
So you can issue the 10 million, like this example, you can issue $10 million worth of bonds, take 830,000, do that, take the, well, net of all this other stuff, 7 million or whatever it is, 8 million, you can put that back in the bank and earn that back on that until you spend it on something else. You wouldn't have to
That's not.
No, we
You
can't,
Or-
we can't
So you
do
can only-
that. We're
So-
restricted.
So we would, why would, yeah, but then why would we even be considering issuing it?
Yeah, that,
Okay, either put late stuff.
he was saying that's our credit.
We asked-
I got it.
We asked him to give the max.
I got
Because we
What is
just-
the max?
There's,
I-
yeah,
This would be, they're just considering issuing a bond. This would be the first time in the history of the board to do it.
right.
So that's kind of the purpose of that, is like, okay, here's what it looks like right now.
Yep.
Here's kind of your bumpers, guardrails, touch the third rail, shock kind of thing.
And as we were doing that, this property came into our
Yeah.
lap. So it just kind of all conspired at the same time, which is great. And now we're gonna move on
The
it.
board wanted to know the max amount.
Right.
So we couldn't issue GO bonds with the tax revenue bond? It's not a GO bond that can be, because we're an MDD. we're
Yeah,
not
we're
using it.
restricted in
Okay,
all of our use.
oh, got it, okay. Wow, we hardly ever issue a meeting on that.
Yeah. So,
Well, it's there for you if you need it, if you wanted a piece of property that I know exists right now for five.
I'm just gonna say,
That would be.
Yeah, so you could do project specific, tax based,
For a large.
got it,
but every
And you
project,
can't, you can't put the money in the bank and draw the interest.
because it's not a city GO bond.
No, you can't, even the city can't do that, it's called arbitrage.
No, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, if you borrow money and put it in the bank and you're earning more interest on it than what your interest rate is, you have a running, it's a multi-year time frame where the IRS looks at it, and if you make that, you have to give, no, you have to give it to that. To the government. So
so,
you can't make it. It's a big thing right now because a lot of people, including the city of Auburn, we have some significant debt that has not been used yet. And it has more interest. It's earning more interest than what the interest rate is. Wow. So.
But so using this as an example, okay, we found this great place we want, we're gonna do this, but we don't actually act on it for 5 years, we gain interest meantime, but the cost of development went up. As long as it still went to that development, we'd be okay. We wouldn't have that extra,
Well, if the only thing you're on the hook for is your.
yeah, the arbitrage, we wouldn't be able to hook to that if, cause everything's going up and all.
No,
of a
you
sudden-
would, if you earn more money, it's a calculation that, I don't understand it, Jim can do the calculation, and it's a running, year, it's like a running 5 years, running 4 years, whatever it is. Cause you can have, cause we do have some debt that is more interest rates, the interest rate is more than what we're earning over here. So let's say we borrow $10 million over here at 7% interest, and we borrow $10 million over here at 3% interest. This has been spent, and we're paying this 7%. This over here is 3%, but we're earning 4% on it, so you have a 1% difference, but that 7% over here wipes out that 1% because you're paying it. So it's a hard calculation. It really worried me when I first heard about it because I did, but then Jim said, don't worry about it because you have this running time frame and you have other debt that's covering this.
That's
We're not-
crazy. Wow.
Oh my.
That sounds like a
It's all
monster.
circulated to like
So,
complex.
He's an independent, third party broker guy, right? So,
Jim,
yeah,
yeah.
so his rates are parallel with his competitors, like as far as financing costs, underwriting discount, all of the accessory costs to acquiring the bond.
Well, that depends. You could do an RFP, an RFQ and go out and look for another financial advisor and see what their rates would be.
And I think
But
if it,
he's our established financial.
Okay, I mean, I trust the reputation that he has,
yeah,
the
I
existing.
think we are the largest community bond issuer in Texas. So they're not.
and yeah.
so
And they don't issue the bond. The
No.
broker.
No.
Comes in and issues the bond.
That's what I was, because they do a competitive bid situation. So
They're a
that-
broker, they go
you were
out.
you were in there, but he was talking about when they go out and do a competitive bid and get the best.
Yeah, he's the underwriter.
Yeah.
So in this item of the agenda, we need to decide how you all want to fund purchasing property. This property would be under section 505.155, projects related to business enterprises. I'm reading it from the section that create or retain primary jobs. For purposes of this chapter, project includes land, buildings, equipment, facilities, and improvements found by the board of directors to promote or develop new or expanded business enterprises that create or retain primary jobs, including a project to provide public safety facilities, streets, roads, drainage related improvements, demolition of existing structures, general municipally owned improvements, and any improvements or facilities related to a project described by this subdivision, and two, any other project that the board of directors in the board's discretion determines, promotes, or develops new or expanded business enterprises that create or retain primary jobs. So that is the section that the resolution was written under, that, and that is, again, as Alicia pointed out, the section that, if we change that section to do a bond or a loan, we have to go back and to those 1.51 through 1.58 sections, and that would just change we'd have to find that use of the land, 501.151 to 501.158 in the Texas state statute is what applies to us.
And so right now I'm looking for a motion to approve the funding for the purchase.
Which funding route you want to go?
We're still on number one.
Yeah.
Mhm. We have
There is
to,
no approval, it just says this.
Yeah, we're on two.
well,
Well, are we?
Alicia, do
We
we
are.
have to approve the that was really just the presentation for them to be informed, but do we approve this in one or two?
We can't-
Right, so it's just gonna be directing staff, do we want to take out a bond, we want to take out a loan, or we want to use cash? So,
So no motion is needed then.
yeah, the board needs to give that direction.
According to this agenda item, we can't do that. It says discuss. and
It's fine,
consider.
it's posted.
She wrote it, so. I was,
9 years of MDD, that doesn't.
I
thought this was inside of number 2.
Well,
Number two is just the resolution.
right, this is it, which is this.
Well, in number 2, it'll be, if you approve as written, then you're purchasing with cash, and if you approve under section 505-158, that would be going the bonding route. So it's gonna depend on how you move forward. So you can always, if you don't want to make a motion under number 1, you can talk about it under number 2 and do it that way and say, we're gonna make the motion for the considering which way you're gonna have your resolution based on the funding you use.
I think in number one, I would be comfortable speaking in, if I were going to, it would be this, and then in number two,
Okay, make a motion.
say, because it does say recommending
Yeah.
approve the purchase, so I think at that point in time,
Okay,
I would be more comfortable.
that's fine.
okay.
So what would you be more comfortable with? How do you want me? Tell me what you want to do in number 1.
I am not comfortable with a 9.8 million bond.
Perfect.
Forget it, I'm out. That's just me. I'm
Well,
just.
well, yeah,
I
it's not
understand.
table.
I
I know, and that's what I
Yes, it is.
said last year, or last month as well. I was like, I think that's a little bit too much for a first bite.
But we couldn't use it anyways, because.
No, because it's.
Yeah.
I know.
You could bond $800,000.
Right, and then.
We could, and he
pay
already
more
said,
than your discount.
I mean, he already said it's not gonna
Another
matter
thing,
what we
Well,
do.
Because
Or
you get
bond
like
if you
one
want.
guy, you know,
Like,
for anybody to buy an $800,000 new bond, I would want.
Well, that's
just
just waiting.
You know, it's just, you have to incentivize somebody to buy such a small piece. So
Right.
you would probably pay more than the 6.
Right.
Okay.
I would be more inclined to do cash,
Cash.
because we have cash. And that's what we've been saving
Saving
for the last 10 years.
For sure.
So Alicia, can the motion be the not approval of the loan, but recommendation?
I don't even have to have it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because it's discussing.
So, okay.
So I think, that's the question.
So now moving on to
As
number
we're-
2.
Well, but as we're considering, are there any other considerations other than cash? Does somebody feel inclined towards $1 million bond or an $830,000 bond or?
Then price tag of cash.
I think everybody kind of, so, yeah.
And to be honest, it's quicker.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it was gonna take 4 months, and these guys not gonna wait 4 months to
Right.
get his money anyway. I mean,
We do,
Well, you could honestly, I would guess that we could probably pay cash and then be
yes,
refunded
Yeah.
essentially.
you have to do a special, resolution that
Mhm.
pays back from.
right.
Can we
We'd have to-
do-
And we
we'd have to
don't
follow
know
the
which
money
judge-
as to-
Please.
And cash does not require sending it to the AG's office, correct, Alicia?
Correct.
No.
Unless you're looking to be reimbursed later through bonding.
Right, no, okay, all right, that settled that.
So, is everybody good to move on to number 2?
Or is there any more discussion on
I
that?
have a general question.
Yeah,
Last
no,
question.
please.
Okay, looking at, for instance, if there was a larger, parcel of land that was gonna have a larger price tag, so when we go in to purchase that land with a bond, we're building in the inflation buffer.
Oh, I was just looking at the area.
So obviously, you're not bonding at your purchase price, you're building in inflation costs. If you wanted to develop it, you're building construction costs and all of the timelines associated with that, right?
Mhm.
So you're inflating that bond amount to consider
cover
all of those.
development.
Yeah, if we're developing like water, sewer, streets, yeah. But if we're gonna buy and turn it, not necessarily.
I mean, you said, depending on what we're using it for, we would.
Yeah.
Yeah, now if we're gonna build a golf course and it's gonna be city owned and operated, yeah, I would bet, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, don't bring that up. Mike
Moving
keeps
on to
asking
number
for
2.
money. Okay,
Consider,
Golf course?
No,
consider and approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of property at 9160 Aubrey, Texas, 9762227 in Ohio Meadow Drive Road, for $830,000. And recommending that Aubrey City Council approve the purchase of 9160 Aubrey, Texas, 76227.
Has that actually been approved, or is this gonna come back at 850,000 or 900,000?
No, we have a contract.
Just wanted to double check that.
Thank
for
you.
some of the people that have not been here.
It is under
Maybe
contract.
questioning.
Yes.
Okay,
And y'all
Under
put
contract,
it down.
we don't have a contract.
Yeah.
that was my only,
Well, no,
The contract will be assigned to us once we approve.
Okay.
Once the MDD approves, well, it'll be assigned to us, it'll be assigned as soon as you approve it, because we're locking in as of 4/12, the feasibility period is over on 4/12. And if you once you vote tonight, it's done, the council's already aware of it, they'll vote on it on the 18th. But after the 12th, you lose $10,000 and you back out.
we don't want to.
Yeah, we put that down back at the last meeting. So also you got your environmental report that I emailed to you.
This is beautiful.
Because Vicky had asked, and y'all had, some others had asked about the,
where's the other 387 pages?
Doesn't it seem very small?
There's like
I don't know, ask Charles. He sent- Charles shared that one out, so, it does not appear to have had any gas or oil tanks, so that was, one of the big questions y'all had, so.
That's totally.
But again, there's your balance, in the bank now, the $3,014,983.17.
That does not include your,
That
does not include your surplus for this year.
right, that's today, like,
That's today.
yeah, or end of March, really,
So that's today.
end of March bank statement.
End of March, and you're looking at a 500 and something thousand surplus in your budget.
Okay.
Yes, because we had originally budgeted for the sales tax. If you look at the sheet, again, your budget worksheet, we had originally budgeted an $800,000 sales tax income, and we're actually at estimating 940,000. And then we have our interest income, so we will end the year positive. And so, is there any other questions on the purpose and I sent you the resolution that in your attachments. So,
Do I have any questions? Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of property at 916 US 377 Aubrey, Texas 76227 and High Meadow Road for $830,000 and recommending the Aubrey City Council to approve the purchase of 916 US 377 Aubrey, Texas 76227.
Make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing purchase of 916 US 377 and another road. So I think it's $30,000
Via,
via cash.
Thank you.
Method payment cash and approve the purchase of 916 US 377.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Aaron and a second by Vicky. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
Great,
Very good.
okay.
And
So,
so, moving on to number 3, consideration and approve updates to the Aubrey MDD Targeted Improvement Grant Program. Christine,
all right, so I'm gonna pull this document up, but basically our current targeted improvement grant, which y'all received in your email too, is $1,000 minimum, $10,000 maximum, but it's only up to 10,000 on exterior, only up to 10,000 on interior, minimum 1,000 on interior exterior. So it is somewhat limited as well in allowances because it does not include any kind of landscaping upgrades, signage upgrades for beautification, doesn't necessarily spell out fire suppression systems on equipment. And the doesn't necessarily count utility upgrades or equipment upgrades for energy efficiency and improvements in like HVAC systems and so forth. So there's also no formal evaluation or scoring system in place for objectivity, which a lot of grant programs do have a scoring system that the board can use when reviewing a grant. And then that way it is based purely on whether a score based on whether or not the application meets the goals and objectives of the grant program. So I sent you a document and I'll just glance at it here. Just going to, and Alicia received that as well in the mail, right? Or in email. So Alicia, we're looking at the comparison of the grants. I chose 3 grants for communities that are similar in size. 2 of them are in Denton County, 1 borders Denton County and is similar to us, similar population. But they're almost like 3 different types of grants. So Pilot Point grant is very thorough. Keep in mind, Pilot Point is a Main Street city. They do have historic designations. They have to also follow historic preservation guidelines. So we do not necessarily have that here. They offer a percentage of maximum for their grants. They have a $25,000 maximum grant, and they apply different eligible projects to the same building after 24 months of receiving a grant. So someone can come back in 2 years if they had a second phase to a project. They clearly outline what's eligible and ineligible so that the applicant knows going into it, which that they're on the hook for this, and they're not going to get money for a certain type of item, so don't even ask. Allows for some signage upgrades, allows for landscaping and lighting, clear application process, again, takes out the questions, includes a clear outline of review criteria, and allows a site visit from staff prior to the completion to check on the work that was done and the enhancements, and they have to actually have a pre-construction meeting with city staff. So it's not, city and staff can make sure that the quality of work is up to standards and code and so forth.
Wouldn't they already have that with, like a certificate of occupancy anyways?
Well, not necessarily for the improvements, because they could argue either.
Specs from the city inspector anyway, right?
But this would be with staff to make sure they're also meeting the grant requirements, and it's a pre-construction. So not before they start any work, they would just make sure, and that the city staff could make sure it's meeting the grant requirements. So moving on, the North Lake grant. This is a little bit different grant. I liked it, just wanted to offer y'all different looks at different grants and types of grants. again, it had the scoring component, so that was nice because it does hold it to those standards. It also is a new grant they just implemented, and it's not necessarily focused on enhancements, but it has some features that I think, not necessarily right now, but in the future, Aubrey might want to consider for a new business that would want to come in that is a small business, maybe small scale manufacturing, small business owners, local business. It's not meant for corporate, not meant for chain franchise. It is meant for a business that can truly come in and expand, and it's like a new enterprise. So I see her nodding her head. So that has a scoring component. It has an evaluation process, and the funding is based on projected sales tax that business could bring in, and they actually have a sliding scale of what and a tier for rent support, rent help and assistance. So if you take a look at that grant closer, I'm not necessarily suggesting some of that. I wanted to bring it up to y'all though, because it is a grant that I think, looking at Aubrey's small business community and what we are seeing, and there's some of their challenges, I think that would be an ideal grant if we want to retain, help a business expand that is already maybe a small scale manufacturer, or bring one in if they, we've got some appropriate buildings to recruit, to bring some folks in to do that. So keep that in mind on that one. And then on the Anna grant, that one is really more about the beautification, the signage, the landscaping, outdoor seating, patios. It allowed for remodeling for the public benefit, which again, some of that goes back to air quality, upgraded HVAC systems, things that would, be a little bit better for public in a restaurant. Grease trap rebates. Grease traps are very expensive. They also offer specific downtown redevelopment, and some items are covered in 380 agreements. So again, that's kind of focusing on their downtown and redevelopment with 380 agreements. So again, thought those were 3 good grants with cities that are similar in population, not necessarily similar in style, because Northlake, as you know, is grown extensively, but it's a very small square mile area. So
And there are some differences between EDCs and MDDs where they're allowed to fund things that we're not, and vice versa.
correct, but we can, through grants, we still fall under a lot of EDC type A and B requirements. And as Alicia and I have gone over those sections 0.151 to 1.158, where we're restricted on like land use and purchase and property and so forth. But when it comes to grants, we're very similar to what those can do. So
right. So but it is just type B, not type A. So the 501,
yes, yeah.
151 to 158 is type B.
Right. Yeah, that part is, yeah. But as far as MDD, we're often compared to A and B type uses. So, okay, I'm gonna go back to the item. So my recommendation is, and I'm gonna pass this out to y'all. I would have about 5, 6 recommendations for you all to consider. Again, these are recommendations based on what I am hearing from small businesses, what I'm hearing from just the industry and other downtowns and communities that really are finding that the small businesses still, even in a post-COVID and pandemic, really still need a lot of that support. So if we're wanting to see less small businesses close, we may have to start helping out with some of that initial cash flow that they don't necessarily have.
And so Alicia, you went through this too, and you kind of, this is all stuff that we can,
Well, pilot points in MDD too.
okay.
This I haven't gone through yet. So it would be
Oh.
you getting kind of some direction in what you're wanting to look for, and then Christine and I would work together to put that together.
Yeah. So Alicia, I gave them a list of some of the things from the pilot point grant that I think I copied you on that email, but so basically though, the 5 or 6 things I would recommend for us now to implement and update our grant is consider a $10,000 increase for the grant maximum to make it a $30,000 grant with 50% match to go toward the overall grant requested items, not dividing it by exterior and interior. Let it be used the way it needs to be used to make the building improvements. If not a $10,000 increase, I would recommend an increase of $5,000 to the maximum grant to allow for inflation. that has impacted construction costs with the same recommendation of, you know, keeping the exterior and interior undivided, just let it be for everything we need. Include coverage for more upgrades and improvements, including fire suppression, HVAC efficiency upgrades, utility upgrades, landscaping improvements, indoor, outdoor lighting efficiency upgrades, outdoor patios and signage improvement. Implement an evaluation system with a scoring system that allows each board member to score the grants when presented, and that'll ensure a fair and objective review with a minimum score requirement for approval. Allow the applicant to request funding again after 24 months from the first request, but for a different improvement project and not to exceed the maximum amount allowed. And I put it all on one page. So those would be my recommendations for our targeted improvement grant, the existing one we have, to expand what it offers and covers, to increase the amount, and to not have that divided line of exterior, interior projects. It could just be overall, because some of these buildings that they're looking at improving, they're going to spend more money on the inside right now than they will the outside, and they're going to need more money to get started on the inside. Some of these buildings are also in areas that could use a little beautification and improvement.
Are you suggesting we change this and this is not paid at completion, that we pay this up front?
No, that would still apply.
So they're
This
still
is
gonna have to have the
just
money to do it.
correct,
Yeah,
but we
presumably
would
they
not
have-
give them money. No grant gives money until the project's done. So nobody would get paid. I'm not saying paying up front. That's not changing. I'm recommending changing elements and features of our targeted
I think he was
improvement.
confused because you indicated at the beginning that it would help with their cash flow.
Yeah,
And it's not gonna help their cash flow in the beginning.
at the beginning, yeah.
No, not in the initial, but if they don't have to dip into as much of their cash flow because we're covering more expenses, like the initial improvement that they're gonna have to get, so for instance, an HVAC system. When that system is installed and the project's done, they'll get that money back, and they're not gonna be out 6 months, a year for paying out for an HVAC system.
Okay. The HVAC would be covered under the current policy.
It doesn't specifically say,
So that is one thing, whenever I was talking with Nick, it was just talking him through, trying to get him to understand that there's no defined, there is no defined anything on what our grant kind of goes over. And so it's kind of confusing for me. And I mean, I was just trying to learn. And so I think that is one thing that we need to kind of define better. And that does help define a little bit more as to what we do cover, to give them an idea of what, they're just not gonna submit something and then totally get rejected, or we gotta word this correctly, you know, it just kind of shows.
Well, that's all we got.
they
staff
can
to-
strategically plan.
I mean, they're supposed to be there to do that. Now, I would say
I
this.
was on leave when Nick asked about the grant, so
We know.
Holly
Yeah,
and
but
took
I
it
asked
over.
earlier what was the interest behind it, you didn't give me an answer, so.
Yeah.
Well, because we were covering it tonight, sorry, I was trying to get ready for the meeting.
So, I mean, the way we've all, you know, we could certainly make a different decision tonight, but the way I've come to look at it, like, if it's something that is readily not going to be there, then I don't like the idea of spending taxpayer money on it. So I'll go extreme, like, we want to put a bench outside because it would be a great place for people to sit while they're waiting for their table. Cool. Is that bench gonna stay there? You know, what's the public benefit to that? Now, conversely, fire suppression, HVAC, and I would say one thing I don't like in the pilot point when I see is they're excluding painting a building. I think painting a building is actually.
They shouldn't even be new.
Says a new
Eligible in here,
It says a new
specifically
building.
not eligible.
Shouldn't be new.
For a
And-
new building,
Oh,
right?
painting a new building? That's-
Yeah,
be
like,
new.
okay, like,
So-
a
building.
No. And again,
So-
a bench wouldn't qualify because it's not part of a patio furnishing for dining.
And
So,
It says seating area.
well, and so I think a lot, what you left out of here is it talks about you go further into their application and it explains what everything that it has to, the longevity. How, like, if there's something, in here that it's in the eligibility portion, but it talks about, it talks about how it's going to be there for the long haul. It's not something that we're going, And we have to sign off on that it's not gonna be taken when they leave.
And that's part of your scoring system. Your evaluation and scoring system would ask, and you would score it on that. Is this project meeting the objectives of the program and the goals of the grant program? And you score it 1 to 5, whatever. You would have that chance to put that score on there, and everybody here would have that same chance, and it keeps it objective in that it puts it back on the applicant to explain also how do they reach those goals of the grant? How is their project fitting within the goals?
Is there a clawback like for landscaping if it dies?
If
or
you,
drought?
well, you can't,
It actually says,
Yeah.
it says in there, it says that you have to plant plants that are gonna be there for
What
like
happens?
it says hardy,
you don't have
That's
to,
what I'm saying. I
well-
mean, what happens if it doesn't?
it says, I think that you have to pay back. I'm
you
honestly-
also
I gotta
don't
find
have
it now,
to
cause I was looking at it, I was like, dang, that's serious, but it made me like what it was going out.
keep in mind, Pilot Point, like I said, is a Main Street city. They're held to a different standard by the state in historic preservation. We are not necessarily. So they do also, historic preservationists are very particular about the types of plants that get placed in historic places and buildings because they like them to be true to the period and so forth. But we don't have to approve plants. We could approve a planter that would enhance if they wanted to, for instance, there's brick planters over there. If that needed to be changed and re-elevated, and that actual planter is built into the sidewalk. So there are landscape and beautification and
Yeah,
signage
permanently attached.
that can be approved. And there's also signage. Mike had an example he asked me about on a building that's on 377 that could use some new signs because it's pretty worn out. But if that building were to come, a building owner was to come ask, there are certain signage we could be allowing improvements for, which would help with the corridor beautification and keeping Aubrey beautiful. So it's also not necessarily just, it's lighting behind a sign that might go out, that they need new lighting for that. So those are the types of projects that right now in the grant, it's not very clear. And those questions come back to us a lot. I've given the grant to another business that was wanting to look at doing some outside patio work. Again, when they see the grant, they're not necessarily, keep in mind, these are busy business folks who are looking at something, and if they're asked a question point blank, it's easier for them to give an answer than to have to sometimes always come up with the things that fit into it when it's not outlined.
Part of the reason why we did the improvement grant the way we did it is so that it was short and not 4.30, 5.6,
Yeah.
116, because to your point that you just mentioned, these are busy business owners and they don't have time to go through
This, that was pretty neat.
42. Now,
No, I get it.
So one of the reasons why we did it the way we did it was to be ambiguous so that people that were interested in obtaining a grant would be able to say, okay, you know what, I don't feel so bad with reading this one pager and putting in what I need money for.
And that makes sense. I get
And
that.
all that was done.
Not
was
overwhelming.
Having a full-time executive director, so we've got full-time staff available to answer questions. So, the other thing I would say, we, again, a little bit vague, but the other thing I would say is we've looked at a lot of grant proposals. I mean, nobody else here, I guess, just two of us here. That have looked at a lot of grant proposals. And I can only think of perhaps 2 that had issues where like, gosh, you guys couldn't get the full amount if you're not careful. Because in most of these, they're actually doing a true renovation. They're not throwing paint up, they're not putting on, a planter outside, like they're doing like or one sign lighting, they're doing a job that's $100,000 job. It was never, no, not never. It was rarely an issue to where like, gosh, I need you to change this. Now, where you run into it is you can have somebody that comes in and they're not looking to do a whole lot. Well, then I would argue that maybe they shouldn't be getting a whole lot,
Yeah.
right? And then, again, my personal thing is like, if it's gonna actually improve that site and it's gonna be durable to whatever use, because here's the other thing, just because you want to put in an outdoor seating area at this restaurant, and you think it's cozy and cute, it's gonna be great, and then you close in 6 months, And I want to put in a little business office, because it's downtown area, and I'm just gonna do like a realtor office. Well, that outside the cozy cute seating is now a liability to me, and I have to get rid of it.
And I
Because I
think,
don't want people sitting there, I don't want to have to clean it, I don't want to have to maintain it. So, but in HVAC, that's permanently attachable, pretty much permanently attachable. You know, you're not walking off of that, you know, if it's a cooler in a restaurant, sometimes those don't stay.
Right.
Sometimes that leaves, you know.
But you could make it a requirement.
Well, that'd be one thing, if it was a requirement, but.
Yeah.
And it would, that one though, would also be something the board want to consider on a case by case basis, because certain buildings, it might not only be a fit. I mean, you think about your regular average retail shelf, like you'd see on a common thoroughfare. They don't have to be a restaurant kitchen, right? They could just as easily be a liquor store, as a martial arts studio, as, you know, a nail salon, and they're not gonna wanna walk in.
for sure, and I think that's kind of where in this whole concept of doing this is so that it is more geared towards all of that. And it's a scaled situation instead of, I mean, you are gonna have a case by case situation, but if you have an application that it doesn't have to be 20 pages or 10 pages, even that, but to guide them in a better direction. If you look at the one now, it doesn't have anywhere for you to put money, how much money you need. It just has the application of what the square footage is. It doesn't really have, all the information that we really need as a person. It's just a one-page blanket.
It does require them to submit professional estimates.
But it doesn't have,
So
but
that would have to
what
work.
I'm saying is this, then we have to go through all the paperwork and then put it in. This is having them actually do work. Put effort into making.
But she just said that these business owners, they need to have this, and we're trying to make it simple.
Simple,
Well,
but they need to be
let me
actually.
clarity that for
Effort.
clarification. So for instance,
I
when I
know.
was speaking
Good for
to,
you, but.
well, no, I don't want a 20 pager, but I do need something that I can stand by too, and that I know the
It's written
board
right
has
there.
said, this will not be allowed. Don't even come ask for it. Don't try to fit it in. Don't try to squeeze it in, because it's not on there. It's ineligible.
And it can be, oh,
And-
Jesse says this, but half of word says this. No, this is what we want.
And the other thing is on the application process, we can keep it a 1-2 page application process where they have to get their professional estimates. But what we don't have in that current grant is outlined what is covered and what is not. When I met with the business owner, we had to question a couple of things because it didn't really outline it in the grant. And it would make it easier on staff as well for me to know, okay, we're having a conversation we can't even have, because that's not allowed. But here's what is allowed.
This is like a beautiful menu.
And so,
But
yeah,
also
so,
has-
But you know, some menus are way too busy.
yeah.
Like
So,
a cafeteria.
but if it, but
There's also lines that say may be considered, so I mean, there are some lines where you leave it.
then keep in mind in your evaluation scoring process, you can ask their business history, how long they've been in business. You can ask if their lease is what their projected lease time is. There are things that some businesses you'll know from their application, whether it's gonna last for 6 months, or you need to ask for business plans. Honestly, I don't even see us asking for business plans. The businesses need a business plan if they're going to want to apply for funding. For anybody, really, when COVID hit, the reason some grants, small businesses did not get grants is because they had no business plan to submit to the IRS. They had no banking financial statements because they'd been using their personal accounts. So it's an opportunity for us as well to educate small businesses, and you can speak up if you have any. Just waiting to say something. It is that, yeah, I've got it.
No, it's not. You switched
I've
it.
got
Right.
it 2 and 5 on some of it. That, I just did fix later.
No,
And
I
on the
mean,
signature,
like,
it says
check
one
that.
or seven too. It's confusing.
But I'll put the building. I
The
had the
building
building on
is-
there one time. So in terms of this grant and this conversation, I just need some direction to move forward with some changes and updates, what you all would like to do. So I can get that ready, and Alicia and I will look at the final product and application to make sure there's not anything that we cannot do as an MDD. But basically, it would give me a little bit more concrete conversations on what's allowed, what's not, And it would also, if we find a project that you all think is great and they do need more funding for something, that's where you can go into 380 agreements. You don't have to stick to the grant program. So we have options of funding some of these projects. It doesn't have to be just through a grant. So I think that's where that conversation would come in. So I would,
The other thing, TIP was never intended to be like the only option.
Right.
We've done mixed grants with
yeah.
at least one successful applicant and considered it with, gosh, probably 2 or 3 at least others. For a location that no longer exists, but, you know.
well, and that, I mean, that is gonna happen, and it's happened in so many cities. It's not necessarily just, I mean,
Oh, it was
yeah.
Betty's. There were several restaurants that were interested in coming in and fire suppression was the issue.
It was a map.
And the board never took public action, but staff was directed, when we had staff, sometimes it was executive director, or sometimes the president, vice president, reached out and said, you probably should consider this, but you should definitely come to city staff and our, you know, then temporary executive director, with this information, because that was always an option. And something that, you know, we would have done if that, you know, now it's a gas station, but I would have liked.
They couldn't.
The other 2 options would have been better, but there were some other issues. Again, all the issues that kept that from happening was nothing to do with Aubrey, the city, or Aubrey MDD. It was all private business transactions that could not work. And in that particular case, like this amount of money wouldn't have changed a thing, because there would have been more on the table than this would. So it wouldn't have done a doggone thing.
Right, which is like a case of.
Well,
Yeah.
and some grants ask the question, what is your projected sales, so that we can project sales tax income based on those projected sales. So those are things that we need to know before we start handing out money. It needs to be good money to a good program, good business. If a business is established already, such as some of those grant applicants that have come, then we have a history. If they have no history, you should require a business plan. We need to see what their plan is for staying open 3 to 5 years. That is actually becoming more and more of a requirement.
Yeah, again, if we're putting in, or we're upgrading your HVAC, we're putting in fire suppression where there wasn't before. I mean, I want that business to be open in 3 years, but if they're not, that building's more valuable. Than the
Right.
next tenant.
We're still helping
roll
the
that
building.
back through.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd be cautious about with requiring like a sales tax estimate amount. That might not necessarily, we might want to give a grant and have it not be the sales tax thing, because again, the targeted improvement idea was beautification. Great example, the other side of City Hall, the Peterson's building. It looks much better now that they've done that. And then we know the case, I think they would probably very readily, if they were going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
It made it a little bit easier, and again, all done after, they had the layout, 100% cash layout, it was just on the back end. But in that case, they're not bringing in sales tax like a steakhouse or something, but.
And you can
We
make
definitely
that,
want our downtown to look more like that than.
we can make that one of the program requirements. How does this project meet this requirement? And that's part of the evaluation system. So it doesn't necessarily have to, because it might be for primary jobs. So if it is going to increase the value of the building,
Would this really be the right
it,
program for that?
well, no, it's not just
Everything overall.
overall. It's not, I'm not getting down to the micro level. I'm
Right.
saying overall, we can improve this grant and the language and make it more clear, make it easier for staff to promote. I can have a flyer that I can give out in a business packet that promotes what the general features are.
Essentially.
But this paperwork, y'all wouldn't have to mess with. That's why you do have me. So as you said, so that's the paperwork that I would feel comfortable with. I don't like 20 pages, but I'm saying I feel more comfortable having valid paperwork that I can hand out and go over with the business. And having a process like what some of these had,
Okay.
meeting and looking at the project.
So for someone that, you know, you're in the weeds with small business owners and entrepreneurs every day, right?
Yeah.
So what is your feedback and your perspective on you advising and coaching small business owners through these types of processes? What is most advantageous for them to actually execute and take advantage of these programs?
I actually have experience with issuing small business grants during COVID with the City of Dallas Revive Fund back then, and then currently we issue $30,000 grants, actually. Well, a total of 30,000, 5,000 for 6 businesses. And while I'm not looking at that document, I don't know what's on it. It's just random, honestly, that I'm here. It's really a random question that I chose. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna come today.
Awesome.
But, so, to your point, entrepreneurs don't like to fill out a lot of paperwork, because especially the smaller micro ones, because they don't have anyone to manage it for them. So, you know, it's in that digital shoebox.
Yeah.
Right? At the same time, though, you have to do your due diligence, proving that this business is gonna be around, how they're gonna use the money. And if you can read, as you said, from their application, if they have the proper documentation in place. So I think there could be a level of due diligence, whether it's proving that you're registered with the state. Number one, that, you know, that what are your gross revenues? Provide your last 3 months of bank statement.
Yeah.
So the application could be 2 pages, but then there's additional documentation that needs to be submitted, just so that, you know, that the person is gonna use the money for what they say they're gonna use the money, and then maybe there's some requirements, you know, 6 months, 1 year later, that there's some report back to you all. How did that grant impact your business?
Yes.
Whether with the improvement, did it help to increase your customer service rating?
Yeah.
Did it help you generate more? So there's, yeah.
So where it came from, in most of these grants, they do require, what our grant requires is they have to have, they do not get the money until they have the paid receipts that they turn in. But the evaluation in a year is actually a good measure for the program as well as for the business. It also gives an opportunity to go back and talk to that business about what's happening with their,
I'd like to.
is it good, bad, you know, what's the feedback that you're getting from the business? So those are all great points.
And one just last point, you mentioned they need to have a business plan, most of them don't.
Right.
So, you know, that is gonna be a deterrent for them. However, if there's an opportunity to provide them with some technical assistance, even if, which is training, even if it is create a 1-page, you know, it doesn't have to be a 30-page business plan, right? But if there's a way to connect them with, you know, business training or consultations through the SBDC or other resources to help them put that plan together, then that gives them an opportunity to apply, because they need a plan anyway, but, you know, not requiring that full 30-page plan, they're not going to.
Right. Well, and we do have some education opportunities we're working on with SBDC and others to come and do some seminars with combination with the chamber, and also if we get our luncheon going in the summer when we're working on that with the chamber, but having those education seminars. But there are templates that we can give to businesses for those things. So again, it just gives us the opportunity to shore up the program a little bit, add a little bit more backup to it and proof, and also helps me in talking with them initially about their needs and what would be best to apply for toward the grant. What do they need the money? What do they really need the money for to get open and get open quickly, so that they're not waiting 6 months?
I also think we should be targeting all businesses.
Yes, but in terms of awareness and building awareness for the program, it would be great to have these changes made and have a 1 sheet.
The documentation on the last one, Chicken Express, and send it to the board. It should be in those files you got them.
Yes,
right?
it's in the computer.
And that way you guys can see,
Yeah.
so it's like, oh gosh, they wouldn't know what they're doing. They do. There's been one instance in my experience on the board where we had somebody that frankly just did not turn in anything. They literally wrote it in pencil and turned it in. And that's one reason why the program now says it's gotta be a professional estimate. because we rejected it, because we're like, it sounds about right, we had people that are construction folks, and like, that sounds about right, we're just not gonna say, you can literally pencil with this and hand it in. But
I mean, you have to have a little bit of ambition to say, you're going to save 10,000, 30,000.
and that's, yeah, exactly, so if you look at like the most recent success rate, and it was a little bit more professional than some of the smaller ones around town. You know, this guy, this is like his 7th store, so he's got a little bit more experience, but you'll see that like, they can figure it out. This is not like some insurmountable thing. Because generally speaking, if you're gonna redo a business, you already know how much you're gonna spend, you know what you wanna get done. Like, or, you know, to your point, they would need a business plan at that point, because they might have some deeper issues.
Okay, I have one thing Charles, do you have something?
So 2 things from my perspective, your current grant guidelines are vague
Very.
and
I get why you did it.
Christine needs guidance.
Yeah.
So the board and I have asked Christine to do more.
Right.
But what happens is without that guidance, with the vagueness of the current policy, without that guidance, she has to meet with a business owner, have a discussion with them, and then wait 30 days till the next meeting to talk to the board to see if they're interested and where they're at.
Right.
And then she gets feedback from the board, and she has to go back to that person again.
My
My thought here was by giving her more concrete guidelines, but still allowing for some may or may not. This was much more succinct in what they allow and what they don't. And I think for the business owner as well, that gives the business owner a better idea of what is covered and what is not covered, and they won't ask for those things that are
Right.
available to them.
Exactly, it's black and white, in other words.
So I think that was number one, and also the application that I read from Pilot Point that Christine liked, it's only 3 pages, it's not that big of a change to what we have here. The current application that we have, I don't really completely fully understand that application, because it leaves a lot to the imagination. You have to kind of draw some of your own conclusions and create something. So rather than them create something, we're giving them something that's already in place that they can fill out. Christine can say no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. All right, this is a completed package. We're taking this to the board. Because really and truly, the board should only see it once. You shouldn't have to staff it 3 or 4 times at 3 or 4 different meetings to get to it. Christine, you as the board give Christine the guidance. Christine goes out and brings you a prepared package back, and you say, this is what we'll approve, and this is what we won't approve, and then she goes back and tells the person, this is what they've approved, and this is what they won't approve.
I'm not averse to changing this, just to cut to the chase. I'm not adverse to changing what we currently have. I did want to explain why we had what we had and why we had it. And then I also wanted to explain the fact that I don't want a 20-page application, because nobody got time for that. Nobody got time. 100 pages of backup for a $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 grant.
For sure.
But I also wanted to make sure that I understood
The purpose.
all the paper that was thrown at us today, so that we can move forward, because what I don't want to have happen is I don't want to give Christine a check. Okay, then I'm gonna go with question number 1, that's a yes or no. Number 2 is a yes or no, and then we add them up and it's a no, when it's something that we may have been very interested in doing, but the checkbox wasn't right.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's what I don't want.
no,
And
I understand exactly. Christine and I have had this conversation. This is what your executive director is for. Your executive director is not going to bring you one with the checkbox is not right. She's going to do that ahead of time and say, hey, this is not correct. Let me work with you on your application to get
But
what
it's
you
not so much the check boxes either. I need her to have some common sense and go, you know what, this doesn't exactly fit in the check boxes,
Right.
but it may still be something.
And
this
I
board
would do
might be
that.
interested in.
I would definitely do that.
So
If there was a
scoring,
project.
like, cause in what we do, just to make it simple, is, there's even each application goes through a rubric, right?
Yeah.
And then based on that rubric, and then whatever that score is, those are the applications that kind of get moved forward.
Yeah. And I don't think we're quite at that level yet where we're getting so many applications that that would happen, but I think we're definitely getting interest. I've given out three applications so far. So I think, in order for me to follow up and get them to start committing and looking at what they really need, I just wanted to be able to say, you know what, we can also cover this because this is in the list.
So what-
3 applications in the last few months?
No, not applications. I've discussed, they've asked. about
She's
them.
handed out.
I'm
several
having
applications.
conversation, people are asking about it, but nobody's turned an application in.
And so, okay, what I suggest we do here is I suggest we table this until next meeting. I know it's prolonging it, but I want you to put together an application for us, put this in the application, get it prepared, signed, sealed, delivered, so we can look at it and we can go forward. I think that's the best option. So that we can make sure what.
Can we agree on a couple of the high level bullet points?
Sure.
That's really what I was hoping y'all would
Yeah.
give me direction on is the high
Give
level.
us some high level.
And then I was planning to come back with a grant.
So is everybody?
Well,
Go ahead.
okay, nothing, go ahead. Go for it.
I was gonna start with the first bullet point, that she's that the staff recommending a $10,000 increase to make it a $30,000. As opposed to a $5,000 increase.
I personally would be for the bigger one, although go above that versus the current grant is 20 grand and there's $150,000 budget. Well, technically that's seven $20,000 grants. So you might want to think of moving that 150. If you raise it to 30, you probably need to raise the 150.
You'll be able to do that during your budget process.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I also.
Well,
think-
and that 150 is 2 different programs. She didn't make that clear in it.
Okay, yeah, it's an incentive in grants, I see.
Yeah, so the tip grant is currently budgeted at 50,000.
And the other.
And then the blanket incentives, which is something like 380 agreements.
Yep.
That's kind of what that 100,000 is for.
Okay.
For example, we talked a little bit about fire suppression. That might have had been done. So that's kind of out there as like, gosh, it's a big one. And then I know you're a little newer, when Blue Diamond came in, that was like a $450,000 grant from this board. So
Okay.
that's kind of meant to address that, like, ooh, this is a big piece. It's, you know, instead of like, oh, you need to redo your building and the bathrooms are terrible. And, you know, by the way, by the time you chip out that concrete.
Yeah.
So is there any opposition to increasing a $10,000 increase to a maximum of 30,000 that's described in the first bullet point?
No.
What's our current grant percentage?
So is it
50.
It's still 50? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I got a process.
And then include coverage for more improvements in the grant, including fire suppression, HVAC, but that goes to bullet points, right?
That's why I gave y'all
I don't see.
this
that-
just for reference. The sheet here was just for reference for y'all to see what some of the landscaping.
And this is just for me and that bullet point. I personally don't see anything I would strike on that point.
No,
Which bullet
I
point is
would
that?
either number
The third,
3.
the third bullet. point.
So I have a couple of things. Personally, if it's attached and gonna stay permanently, big fan. Landscaping, I don't necessarily love because it dies. This is Texas.
I think you also have to take into consideration like pavers and stuff. So, you know, landscaping is a fine line of concrete flower beds, like you were, because that's in the pilot point one, if you go into it, it talks about that. But, I mean, so I do understand what you're saying, plants, yeah, maybe not, but like if you go into pavers and stuff like that, I don't know.
That's
just-
what you tap on
Well,
a case, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you get around
Yeah.
to-
Maybe, or you can say in the
Hardscaping, yeah.
application.
Yeah, parts,
you could
maybe
say,
that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Landscaping, depending upon the application, you know, having
Yeah,
some kind of a wiggle room,
Yeah.
we want you to think about it. And then
Right.
make a recommendation, and we say, well, no, yes, or maybe.
Yeah, and I think, again, outdoor patios should be a case by case thing. I think there's some places that are gonna be appropriate, like you say, okay, this one's probably gonna say that kind of business use. And other ones you're like, that might not be a benefit to a future owner.
But if you,
That's
if
also-
you leave it kind of general like that,
Yeah.
can't we
At-
make that decision?
Like,
So like, we're also asking to give her clarity and like empower her with like, here's what we want you to get. Make sure it's in these boxes. And bring us
I
up.
don't
You don't have to bring
necessarily
anything in
need
this
the
So I'm trying to-
boxes,
I'm trying to
but
say, like,
these
is it maybe
spaces.
or is it, or yes? If
Well, I
maybe
think-
it's
I
no
think she
one.
would probably figure out that you were, I mean, I think it's
If we
clear.
want this.
I mean, I
Right,
think we
so
need
you're
to
gonna
break
bring
it down.
anything and
I mean,
everything. I
I'm
guess
kind
I
of
would
like,
never
I want
thought-
pay for non.
Bring something you could fit
Yeah.
within
I'm not
some
gonna
form
So you
or
would-
fashion.
Hey, guys,
Right,
moving on.
remember that this is being recorded, and so people that have to go back and listen to it, we can't have 3 or 4 people talking at the same time. Tim, you were talking.
Okay, so if we
Oh, wait,
leave
Alicia has a
something like
question.
that vague
Hold on a
enough,
second, hold on.
we can use it as.
What, Alicia?
I was just gonna chime in and say, because this hasn't been drafted yet, if you wanted to just give Christine general direction of,
Yes.
we want you to move forward with these bullet points and bring back language for us to review at the next meeting,
Yes.
that might get you going faster.
That would be great.
Yeah, but we're going through this bullet point now, at least I thought.
Yeah.
Well, I just mean you don't necessarily have to go through line by line in the bullet point. It could be, we want you to
I mean, I would-
expand and have some more detail of what projects are allowed and bring that back to, because again, she and I haven't gone through the list yet. So we might be able to, like, for example, with plants, it would be a stretch for me to find a way for that to fit into the sections that you're allowed to purchase plants.
Right.
So some of the items might be things that we have to take out
They're gonna
anyway.
have to take out because Alicia said no.
Yeah, well, that's.
So,
We have to have a separate discussion, like, because we're doing a real charter, we worked off one document, so we have, Mike
I
go
know.
down this list. So we look at it, Mike's like, hey, I'm fine with third bullet point, I'm like, hey, I got questions,
Yeah.
problems with certain parts of
for
it.
sure.
Which
And
is
I
how we
think
got,
Alicia.
I don't wanna get too minutia, but by the same token, like.
Yeah.
We can go through some broad strokes and on the second bite at this, and by the way, we wrote this last time, it took us like 4 months. For some of the same reasons, well, we had 2 construction people on the board, and they're like, well, because that was one of their things, like the interior lighting should not be approved. Because in a drop ceiling, what's gonna happen to that lighting in the drop ceiling? It's not uncommon for it to be
And
ripped
I
out
think-
for different uses. So stuff to think about is,
If-
we have this.
And my goal was to have those discussions if that's in a grant application, when it happens, if it needed to happen, if they put it in there. But if I know you're absolutely against lighting, I'm not even gonna put lighting in the application, but if lighting's in there, I'll get into the.
But like we talked about it.
Okay, exterior lighting, you can see
So
the
that-
lighting's a little different, right? 'Cause the way it's
Exactly,
attached,
right.
it's usually
So-
pretty permanent.
So I think we can,
So I think interior lighting is one of those ones where like, generally not a fan. I mean, it would have to be like an exceptional circumstance for me to go, gosh, that's perfect. Similarly, just kind of moving through this, talk about how you learn signage. If we had like a sign, if we had a look we wanted, and we want to incentivize people to put out these
I don't think we
signs.
can do signage, right, Alicia?
You shouldn't be funding the content, but for example, if you needed to if someone wanted to build a monument sign, that was probably something that you could do.
That's,
Yeah.
that, again, that's
Well,
where you
So,
get into.
if we just say we'll do signage. And they're like, oh, I want to put up whatever the max level pole sign is.
Mhm.
Well, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if we had like, and this might be something we push back a few months till after like all the other plans are doing now.
Yeah.
If we had a la Frisco, back when they could do it by code,
Yeah,
they could force them to build it that way. Well, now we can't force them to build it that way, but if they want money, we want you to build it, we want it to look like this. If we have that, and we're funding them to change from an old sign system to a new sign system, sure, and we have a consistent look we're shooting for, love it.
that's true. Yeah, and I think, and it's definitely like on a case by case basis, so I think that would, for sure.
I mean, I would say we gotta have sign standards.
That's where a document like that would support that. and
Implement
that's
an
later.
evaluation system with a scoring system that'll, no, we want this to be all brought together.
Well, I know, what I'm saying
Okay,
is.
okay, I was just making sure we were on the
That's
same.
yeah, we're on the same page. The bullet points I
Okay.
put in there were general relating to this.
Implement an evaluation system with a scoring system that allows each board member to score the grant when present. This will ensure a fair and objective review with a minimum score requirement for approval. I think that's no problem with that, right? Everybody we'll do it. Allow, does anybody have any questions?
I mean, for broad stroke, no, but over the details and
For
how
sure,
we weight and stuff like that, that's a way bigger discussion.
I agree with that, and I think that's a bigger discussion Well, how you
That's
rate.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the weight, the individual
Yeah.
and scoring, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and
Exactly.
the weighting can help on some of those other issues about business plan and
Yes.
viability. But you can weight that more than something else if you want, so that could be back to her.
Yeah, and
point.
you could get,
You
you
could use it as
could
a
stage
gauge.
it like if they wanna have, like, if the total public funds are under 10,000, you're not subject to weight.
right.
Then
And
if you
I-
want the full 30,000, now you're subject to weight.
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, you can do something like that, you know, for the truly small, like, I'm gonna throw like a hair salon,
Yeah,
you know, like, she's probably not gonna have $100,000
Right.
project. She might have a $20,000 project, and boy, that would be nice.
Yeah, streamline.
And you're balancing
yeah,
the varying
exactly.
degrees.
And you do, it like, that makes total sense. I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
The applicant to request funding again after 24 months from the first request, but for a different improvement project and not to exceed maximum amount, allowed amount.
This might get really weird, but, or maybe hard to put it in writing, but I wouldn't want them to come back and tell, well, it's new, yeah, but you're tearing out where to pay for,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I don't know how we make that succinct, but,
Well, I think,
and I don't think we have a limit, Marge. That limit's
It's
per
a
year.
different improvement project. It wouldn't be for what they just
Yeah,
did. If they
correct.
had the current policy doesn't say whether or not they can come back at all. So I was just trying to give an option for a phase 2.
I'd be open to some verbiage in the new application that would include this.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what it would look like, and I'm sure, you know,
I'll come
whatever
back.
way you come back with.
And potentially, again, a sliding scale on this, if they do a small amount, because they can only budget a certain amount, and their business is growing, well, then, you know, again, we'll go back to the hair salon. So
Yeah.
now, they've redone the bathroom, they've redone the outside, they have to add 2 more chairs, and they have to add new power,
Right.
and it's 12 months later, well, gosh, no, we wanna promote that. right?
yeah, for
So-
sure. I agree.
But it was, again, a smaller deal. Again, probably really hard to like make that succinct, but.
It is, but I think it'll
So,
be,
do we need like a motion?
I do.
to do
I
that?
need a motion, I have a motion to approve staff to update the NDD targeted improvement grant. Well, actually, sorry, let me rephrase that. We were gonna table this and have her bring it back.
Let's say, we could
Sorry.
just direct staff, everyone.
Well, you can direct me to make the improvements with these recommendations. I will come back, and my plan was to come back with an application for y'all to review again.
Well, I think you got the direction.
So here we go. Consider and approve a print ad in the Lakeside City Lifestyle Magazine.
Wait, I need a motion to.
I would say we table it. You know where to go.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. That's why I
Yeah,
said-
discussion only or.
Number 4.
Go market.
This is all you can see.
Okay, so I gave y'all a media kit online. Sorry, I've got more paper, but it's just because this is nicer looking than what was online. But this is a sample of the publication that is coming out. It's Lakeside City Lifestyle. And it is a new publication, but you may have seen something like this in Prosper or Salina. And the new owner of the publication will be featuring 76227 and 75068. She will be starting her first issue in June. There are advertisements available in different various sizes and pages. I do know she's talking to other MDDs and EDCs. One of them will be advertising, and so I believe Little Elm will be advertising. But we would, I think, be remiss if we didn't take a chance to put our ad in here advertising the Aubrey MDD, because not a lot of people know who we are, where we are, what we do. And I think it would be an opportunity to get ourselves out in front of these businesses, business owners and residents who also would know, hey, you're shopping in the Aubrey area. If we would have a QR code to our website. I'm talking to our webmaster right now about some Google Analytics that would help us with metrics for measuring how many times someone comes to our website and whether or not it might be from this ad. I can put that in the QR code. So I would be able to measure as well as we could promote, and that gives our list of businesses that are in the ETJ and in city limits. It's all on our website.
And to be clear, ad only, not like advertorial.
No, it's an ad. You can do an advertorial,
Oh, I'm
but it's a
sure.
lot more money. But you can do a whole spread, but we would do an ad. I was recommending a half page to start and an open rate, which was the 1485. But
I'm sorry, what's their circulation?
Right
52,000.
now, they target 7,000 homes for sure. It's changing and fluctuating, as you all can imagine, with how many homes are coming out here. They also target by how many are,
59,000.
yeah, but the readership, yeah. But this will go,
They don't actually have.
this will be mailed into
That's our
mailboxes.
stance.
Yeah,
This is.
But it's a new publication, right? So this is,
it'll go into doctor's office. It is new, yes, for this area. Now, it's like I
so
said.
their
Salina
publication
and
of
Prosper.
their planning,
Yeah.
printing and mailing.
But they can guarantee right now the 7,000 mailboxes, plus it's gonna go in the doctor's offices and gas stations and all that. So,
You know, an example
an example
of what you'd like us to put in there.
of, well, not yet, because I,
And what's our,
yeah, if you want to take a look at. That's the media kit, but this is this is from Park Cities, but these are kind of how the ads look. So it would be a half size like that.
so like looking at the kid's yearbook or.
With like a
program
QR
that
code, how you have
something.
here. We'd have our logo, we've put some nice pictures.
Well, I think that's what he was meaning, like, are you gonna put verbiage like this, like, that's why he asked that, like, are you gonna put like the placard card, or are you just gonna put pictures, or what are you thinking?
Well, I would definitely put our website in the QR code, what the MDD does, like mission, and then also support, you know, you can check out a list of Aubrey businesses, in the city limit in ETJ via our websites, you know.
So would it be better to do a full page, like?
I mean, it's up to y'all what you want to
Well, I
spend
mean, the
money
reason I
on.
ask is if you've got like, oh, half page, for example, half page this, I'm like, oh, great, then you already have a plan on what you're wanting or what you want it to look like, but.
Well,
So-
it would have photos and our QR code logo and just some simple verbiage. I wouldn't clutter it up with words. It would just be to draw attention to the eye and the website and the purpose.
Yeah,
of-
I would think.
So the call to action is to go to the website or to drive traffic to the website?
That provides a
Learn more.
lot more information.
Learn more.
Well, it'll be.
And a big Aubrey
Somebody
tech-
finds that in the doctor's office in 6 months,
Our QR code.
and they happen to be curious because they're waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
For our website.
What turnaround? do you do? What do we?
He needs I need to sign a insertion order by mid-April, so I need to know if we want to get in that June issue. I gotta have it, then they'll help us, they can help us with ad design. They got some templates and stuff, and I've got great photos. Tim has just taken and some others, so.
It's already been out.
No. She's just starting to sell it. This is a
Okay.
part.
So if,
Is that
so
the same company that produced that?
Yes.
June will be the
So
first
that's-
issue, is what you're saying, is that right? June is the first issue.
It's not written, but traffic hits on our website, so. would
We
be
have
able
not
to-
been, but I am talking to our webmaster now about implementing that Google Analytics. And I've got to go in and do something on our Google account for her, but yes.
Let's see if something like this has fruit behind it.
Do you know if she's gonna put any consideration as to where our ad's placed, like if it's next to a different story?
Well, a lot of it depends on what rate we pay and what placement we make, but some of that we can get on back page front. If we want the inside front cover, we can pay more and get that. If we want the outside, well, I think she's already sold the outside cover, but I know Alexis will probably work with us to get us one of the best placements if she can.
And it would just go to. It would go here.
Mhm.
I'll just say, I'm new to Aubrey, 2 years, and it was confusing to me. Where are the Aubrey businesses? I didn't know, I mean, I found the chamber site, but, you know, it was just kind of confusing to know, like, where the Aubrey businesses.
Yeah.
I live in Arrowbrook, so I'm close to Prosper and
Mhm.
Little M, but, something like that might be.
I live in Sandrock, and my point was, we think we're part of Prosper, so.
Right, I didn't know what, and I just learned about the boundaries. And so this would be helpful to,
Yeah.
especially the new batch of people coming in that are businesses and trying to get connected.
And most likely your neighborhood would be targeted for this publication, so.
Yeah. And that's something I would think about the content it had is, shop your Aubrey businesses, business found here, like the QR code.
Yep.
Peel that, shop on town, because, I mean, for her, this might be an oversimplification, but if if it's got a city address that's not Aubrey or Pilot Point, it's definitely not in our MDD. It's definitely not in the city of Aubrey. Those two cities though, maybe not. Is that roughly fair? Because there's a couple, I think we have Pilot Point addresses that are in our MDD. I think there's some Aubrey addresses that are really in the city. But if it says Science, certainly not. So that's
One guy advertising.
So it is confusing, it's especially confusing in this part of the metro. A little more so than some of the more developed ones.
So what do you want to do? Are you doing a
I
12?
was recommending a half month, no, not a 12-month, because that's per time, so that'd be like $12,000 something. No, I was recommending this time, since she's going out in June, we could go ahead and commit to place 2 or 3 half-page ads, but while we're in this budget year, because our new budget starts in October anyway, and we could commit to 2 or 3 half-page ads over the summer, but
Is she doing a monthly publication?
it is,
Well, yeah.
yeah, 12, you can be a 12-month partner for like 2,000 something a month.
Yeah.
1,500 a month. It's a lot per month, but you commit to those months. So I did not want to commit to a 12-month situation. I was going to do the open rate, half page for now.
Yeah, which is $14.85
per time, so that if we did 3 of those, that'd be about $3,500. If I did 3 between now and the next budget cycle.
Well, so if she's monthly, there's 4 months left.
I mean, I could do 4 if y'all want to
Well, we're
spend,
just every other.
if we want to do $5,000 worth of ads.
And then-
Frequency is better. Frequency
It's
is
also
important,
summertime.
which is another reason to do frequency. if you're-
Yeah. I would do 3, because it's over the summer, you skip June, most people vacation in
But-
June.
Well,
Since we're gonna be in a
promote,
position-
I'd want to be in June since it's
June,
the
July,
inaugural
and-
issue, maybe skip August and go back in September.
Or skip
when
July.
we've got
Skip
kids,
July.
or skip September.
August. yeah.
July, big vacation month,
June,
August, they're coming back to school, September, they're back. to school.
Can I make what they call this?
I'm
Yeah, one of those things.
Please do.
I'm sorry, I like it. I'll make a motion that we approve a half-page print ad 3 times this summer, the discretion of the executive director. As far as the timing goes, as long as the website or the advertisement, well, as long as. With an emphasis on driving traffic to our website.
And local businesses.
I'm gonna go back and listen to that again, so it's okay. I just wrote down who made the motion.
And my discretion on timing and content,
There you go.
I've placed lots of ads in my
Or do you-
career, so I think.
I would give the executive director discretion on content and the timing, as long as it's driven towards the call to action is go to our website. That's my motion.
I think I would catch up on that. Three ads this fiscal year.
Yeah, second.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mike, a second by Mark. All in favor? All those opposed? All right, motion carries 4, 1, 2, 3, 5 to 0, 5 to 2. All righty, moving on. Consider and review a mural submission.
Okay, so we did not get very many responses. We only had 2 that were submitted. And I'm not sure we will really care for them. So you all got those, but we'll just toss them up now. Did y'all receive the? Okay, so this is one group that submitted, and they had submitted just a drawing sketch. This is an idea concept. This is not the actual drawing and what it would look like. These are images they were inspired by, and this is an actual mural that they've done. And then
Can I see that from your?
what?
On the
Yes.
screen, I didn't have
Sorry.
my phone. Did they say where that mural was?
Yeah,
That's a
that's a
greenhouse.
greenhouse in Denton, Texas.
Right here.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So that, then they had their resume, which I'm not gonna go into that right now. They are artists. This one again, concept, obviously cut out images from where this is not a paint, it would be painted.
Mhm.
Concept only, incorporating the windows.
Wait, that's not them.
No, this is the second.
Second.
Okay, good.
Yes,
Okay.
second submission. So the second submission actually had gotta go back and see if I can get it on here. They were having trouble emailing the, image with the second page on it, so let me go open that.
So we wanted to put in
Just a second, I need to do. I wanna stop share because I gotta go find that for y'all, but, where's my sharing thing? It's gone away. Alicia, am I still sharing the screen with
No,
you?
you're not.
Okay, good, all right. I didn't think it was.
Hi, thank you for
Okay.
allowing me to.
Oh, thank you. Will you grab my card off the table and touch base? Okay, this is the one that we had trouble getting last night, but she resent it. So in her proposal, the one with the horses in the window, they also would propose a mural on the opposite side that would be about the Peanut Festival, highlighting the years of the festival, the start date, image of the dryer, peanut plants, and full images from the past posters of the event. So that'd be on the south wall. The cost would be $7,600. This is the person who also painted the top of our building. And they broke down their budget.
Wait, pause for a second. This is the worst one?
Yes,
So that would be.
but they also have, the reason I pulled this up again is, and here's the course picture.
So the issue that we had, I just want to confirm. Did,
You got.
They didn't give us any
the
references.
Image. They have their website here for work samples. I can click on that.
sorry, I missed it.
But they did do our sign up top of the building, the welcome to Aubrey, Texas. So this is their website, and other, what you've seen them do work, locations where they've done murals. And
Does the location show the murals or just say what it was?
let me click on this one.
This,
Like, this is one they just did here,
this is also the lady that gave us our original drawing, correct?
right?
Okay.
Or which one?
The original drawing that we were looking for references.
Yeah.
And so the, let me go back.
I want to see the first one, please.
Which one? This one?
You're more than welcome to look through all of them.
And again, those are conceptual. The feedback I got was that artists.
Scroll up,
Mhm.
go down on the map.
Which one? Oh,
Here, can I drive?
refresh.
Do minus.
Oh, wait, can I drive?
Now, click on that.
I guess that's just.
Okay, so there's nothing there. Okay.
Wait, no, click on the blue piece.
There's nothing there.
So that's the actual mural.
It's just a Google to show the
Click on
towns.
the image logo to review each gallery.
So that,
Oh, that's the restaurant. So then you click on it and it tells you oh, these are the ones.
so that's an Indian restaurant and what they did there.
They did show it these. I
Yeah.
remember.
Kind of gives you scale ideas of. And this is the Indianapolis project.
We're able to get references from other cities that have murals that we appreciate.
Well. Let me go back to my page
I've
here.
been paying there now.
See.
Picture of mural.
Well, and here's what I would recommend, because like I said, we only got 2 submissions, which is not really a lot considering how much engagement that post got. So I have 3 options of what we could consider doing to get more submissions. We also have people who there's artists that are working on other projects, so definitely we can contact those artists and ask them to propose. I think we need to extend the deadline.
Yeah.
I think we could, do it, like, we can extend the call for artists and ask for we need to probably give a budget. A lot of feedback from a few people we got was, we need to know a budget, because they're not gonna give us a rendering of the actual drawing and scale and all that without getting some kind of payment for that. So we're only gonna be getting these concept drawings.
I keep getting.
Um,
Those are ideas. Keep taking. pictures.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
yeah,
send them
I've
there.
got a million mural pictures all over my phone. It's just, we either need to give more direction on the type of mural we want we need to simplify the call for artists. It was a little bit heavy on like requirements, so we need to keep it simple. We need to, other thing we could do is we could ask our local, we've got some local high school students who've done some artwork inside some buildings. We could see if the art teacher would want to do a project with some students, and make a donation to that teacher, or, you know, the teacher if it's a summer job. But either way, there's other options, and it is a hard building to do with the 3 windows and the shape of it. It's not huge. So if y'all want to keep it out there longer and maybe give a budget to it, an amount.
I think that would be ideal. Just keep it out there until, and we can continue to get submissions.
Yeah, you could, I mean, if you do another social plan, like we're extending, don't say why.
Yeah,
You think this is-
we'd like to extend.
Well, because Gainesville had a ton of submissions
I don't know why.
when they did it. I mean, I know, it's
Yeah.
nothing you did.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I
It
think
is-
it's timing. It was a solar eclipse day, and I mean, it's busy spring.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yeah, the only thing I don't know about that is it doesn't say us.
Aubrey, Texas.
Yeah.
Well, and the artists, anything
We
we
can have
give
them
them
change.
direction on, they can
But
change.
I'm sorry, I actually like I like the idea. I don't know, I want to see all 3 horses, but I love the idea of incorporating that.
Yeah.
I could also see like, honestly, it wouldn't hurt me if they had like 2 or 3 postcard style pictures, and you left the building, the windows the same, everything's white, you just one postcard here, one postcard here, one postcard here. Like that would also be a pretty good concept, because again, this whole thing comes from like,
3 different pictures.
when you go to a certain town, you go to parts of Denton, you go to Corsicana, there's a little postcard thing with 76227 on there. And my wife and daughter love getting pictures in front of those things. So, yeah, if you've got like, it'll cover the whole wall, but if it's like, you know, that's Aubrey there, that's Aubrey with the peanut festival, that's Aubrey with a horse. I could think of multiple girls between the ages of 8 and, I'm not gonna say how old my wife is, because we're already recorded, that would love to get a photo in front of that.
So,
And by the way, as you make the turn off of Main Street, we're in all.
do you want I can extend it, and if we want to give a budget, or just leave it as is, extend it and see what happens, but what deadline?
No, I don't wanna, I don't think we should put budget,
Okay.
but I do think we should, just extend it. You think
So
so? I don't
before
think
the
we
next
should
May
extend it.
meeting?
I picked up a business card or 2 for, I reached out to somebody on Instagram that did a mural, it was a single color mural, but I talked to the business owner and it was hand drawn, like they couldn't put, it was their logo and it was perfect, and they couldn't do like a projected image. But the dude never reached back, I mean, I can't make you do this, pal.
Your
but-
contacts at Denton?
They're from Denton, these two.
These
are
people
recent
But
submitted.
just to have more volume of.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
Contacts and such,
Mhm.
so you're Denton
Mhm.
colleagues that have the artists.
I sent it out,
Rosters.
to different people and said, hey, can you?
Maybe
share
it was
this?
too big of a time turnaround. I mean, too quick
Too
of a
short,
turnaround, sorry.
Yeah, because it probably takes some time.
You gotta be-
To see it, to think about it, and I don't expect there to be like some like gorgeous rendering,
Right.
because we're asking them to essentially do the rendering on spec.
Yeah.
Their bid, so
Spend their
I
time.
totally get it if it's gonna be like a little rough looking, but I really, to me, is like, how are they gonna intend on using the space? Like, I think it's really cool that they brought the windows in, you know, or if they've done like a multiple post, like, how they're, because it's a little unique, it's not just a square wall.
So basically voting to extend the deadline by a month, 6 weeks.
I'd say
That's good. I would say at least 6 weeks might be. Well,
I
so we do
think-
6
I think
weeks.
two-
Well, you can do, we do 6 weeks, that would put it.
June first.
Your next meeting is May
Well,
10th.
I
Do we
do.
want it?
Nice.
I mean. if
Well,
they-
that's what I'm asking. Do y'all think they'll do it in summer when it's so hot? I mean, do we?
No, but that's the purpose. So I think we should do it, have it due in June, and then it'd be ended by the time we approve it, la-di-da-di-da, they can start
I
in
mean, look, they could do it. I mean, that'd be part of
fall.
their proposal, you know. they're
Have
gonna
it
do
ready
it
by
in
peanut. puffs?
90 days. Some of these folks, they might rather do it in the summer.
No rush.
Because it's really not that
Maybe
hot.
they need us to
Depending on
be
Early, and that's facing north. So,
willing to
Well-
work with their schedule more.
yeah, and then they'll have a chance, because that's somebody,
Well, one of
to your
the,
point, if some artist is like booked up.
one of the artists who submitted
Willing
last
to
time
work with.
was willing to incorporate the community into the mural project
Yeah.
itself and use it during, like, before
Yeah,
a festival or
I think the
something,
big thing
so,
with that one is we didn't have any examples of it.
Okay.
That was one issue
So-
brought up by past board members.
Your general feedback had been, that there was no dollar amount associated with the project.
some
You don't think
asked,
it's-
what's your budget?
Yeah.
Some asked,
Anybody?
do you pay for for the scale drawings? Pay the artist to draw it? Do you, want artists out of Texas? I
Yeah.
said, we don't pay
Can we
travel
put it all in
time. When you tell them you don't pay travel time, they don't wanna come.
And that's fine.
Can we put
Um,
a range?
So,
Commensurate with the project itself, if you put a
I mean,
range.
if they're
so you
just
can
across the
at least
river.
look for Professionals.
Like, I would rather go to Texas,
Absolutely.
artists, but if they're just across the river and they're better,
More.
yeah,
More than two.
I'd rather.
yeah, oh, I definitely want more than 2 submissions.
But
We
if
need
it's
Oh,
more
well,
that
than
then
have
we
a
work
range
comes
there.
out.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
do that. Let's extend it into
June first.
June first, our next meeting, so that, or you have it ready for our next meeting. And, see what we get.
You mean?
And
the
then as
June
far as,
meeting,
like,
not ready for the June meeting.
Paid renderings, do we want it, like,
Okay, so extend it to June 1st.
so we're gonna have to do this every meeting, do we wanna put something for, if they're like semifinalists are selected, we'll pay for their rendering?
I was thinking.
Tell people that, is everybody just
Semi-finalists.
Well, then, I mean, if we say semifinalists, okay, we've got you two,
$500.
show me what it's really gonna look like. And we're gonna pay, we'll pay you whatever, $150 to do a proper rendering from like 10, you go down to 2. Give me
Just
10 from 2, and then now I want you to give me a real good
For
one.
them to be chosen and reviewed as finalists?
Well,
Or-
if we
Yeah,
select
we
the
would pay-
semifinalists, we could pay them for.
for the
Like
rendering.
a fine.
Sure.
fine-
I mean, that's
Or we could say, yeah.
sometimes that's common practice, but do y'all, sometimes, like one city was paid $300.
If it makes them happy, then
I'll
it's-
pay me $600 and all the guys.
I don't want them to work
But
for
if you
free.
paid for every rendering, that would.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what
It's the top two.
Your semifinalists,
But I feel like we're making this way too.
Yeah, it is.
I know, that's the hard part. See, it sounds
Can I
good,
just
they
leave
like,
it as
used
is,
to
to
say.
see what happens, and if in May we come back and I'm still not seeing any
Then we'll
activity?
do it there.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Let's see how that goes, and then we'll go through. So I'm just tabling that. We don't need to approve it. Okay,
or discussion on.
yep. All right, we will now move on to the work session discussion. Huh? No, we tabled. Oh,
Well, that's a different, I just need to show y'all staff report real quick. Y'all got it all?
the work session is
We
now the
moved
staff report.
Staff report.
Oh.
I mean, if there's something under work session you want to throw in, but I think it's a follow-up to what y'all's last work session discussions were and what y'all wanted to start seeing. So basically, y'all got my activity report. I do want to tell y'all just from that, I visited with 2 businesses, Blue Diamond and Spring Market. Spring Market's getting ready to do some renovations, talked with them. Blue Diamond, actually, a group that we gave an incentive to. They just added another line. So every time they add a line, they add 11 employees. They're up to 70 employees now. So that's really, and the Spring Market has like 26 employees. So good growth at Blue Diamond. I did try to do a little featured post on them, and they have to ask corporate for permission because of what they make. So I couldn't really do, I'm gonna still ask her because I'd like to do a social media post saying, here's one of our recipients of a incentive. So I'll get to that. Hopefully she'll get back to me with an answer. Placer AI, again, working on all those demographic traffic pins, have been gathering all that, working with Catalyst Group on nailing down some specific reports. We just got a retail leakage report that I gave to Catalyst so we can use it in reviewing our market analysis. And also I do have a folder if if you want to ever just look at it, and I'll send you these in email, but this is basically reports that I pulled from Placer to use for ICSC. Mike and I kind of referred to these sometimes for the demographic of Aubrey, so that information, yeah. Yeah, it's those first three. I think I have other stuff on ICSC in there. So that's our demographic, just so y'all know, it's like target, it's based on a trade area, and not necessarily like the city would look at. It's a trade area of the city, and ETJ also projects it out. It's out 7-mile radius. It goes 3, 5, and 7-mile radius. It also goes out to the future years of 27 and 32. So all of that is in PDF formats. I was gonna email it out, but again, I was sending out so many emails. I felt like I need to do a mid-month email with some of these attachments. Also, you will notice, you saw in the staff report, the High Point commercial. They did give this to me just to start looking at it preliminary. The broker has been in town. I've met with him and talked about, some of the targeted businesses that make sense.
I'm sorry, Mike, did they have a general timeline on that they're hoping to do? Okay.
It's a lot of it's gonna depend on who they get to come in and when that pad site's ready. So, but yeah, they've got 5 pad sites that they're marketing right now. So all that information is in there. It's also, I'll be putting that up on our website with their permission. I'll put that up as available properties coming up. But I'm working with our webmaster on making a more dynamic real estate map that actually pops up available properties like a pop out. The map company that we're using, Flyer Group, they actually created a map for me like that we can use and pop it out. It's just, Aaron looked at it for me just because I said from a realtor standpoint, want your feedback. So there's a couple things I'm gonna have to ask Flyer Group if they can do with the images, but short of being DCAD or, one of those site loop nets, I think we can get to a point where it's a little more user friendly. And Charles and I talked about those maps need to be expandable and easier on our website. A lot of it is just about formatting, how it's inserted into the website. So technical stuff. Food truck vendor fees and parks partnership. Basically, if we host a food truck on our MDD lot, we can waive the fee. Now, they still have to have their inspection fee, and that's not our city fee. That is a fee that if they haven't had their inspection through Denton County, that's on them. But if we host it and have it, we can waive the fee.
Waive the permit for the
Permit for the city.
I know we talked a little bit about like inspections and because inspections can be a pretty significant cost. We talked about asking if there's a way we could do a program, maybe some parts to help them with their fee.
But that's what Parks is saying we can do, is if we have it on our lot and we're, hosting them on our lot, not a business hosting them, but if we're hosting them or whatever, they'll waive the fee because it's the MDD. So as a city partner. But in terms of, Alicia and I've talked about ways to cover the fee, and we'd have to set up a services agreement with Parks and Rec, which we may want to consider doing for mowing and other things of maintenance of property that we are not really paying for in a services agreement right now. So that might be a future discussion when we get ready for budget. But again, to your point, it could cover some of those things.
Yeah.
But
if I'm a food truck guy or gal, and I'm like, yeah, I want to try it out, but I'm not sure your foot traffic's there. Do I really want to get the inspection lead for Aubrey? Because there was some other question about which inspections would count, if it was Denton County only, or if there was,
So one thing we could do as an MDD is use that as almost like a business incubator test for a business that might look at getting a restaurant later, or they might look at, expanding their food truck operations to all. But they could park on our lot and we could be their test market. Again, it's all a matter of marketing, promotions, and how many people know you're there. We also, in a future conversation, I'd like to have something about placemaking in the lot here to make it a little more inviting. If you were to come to a food truck, a place to sit, whatever. We'll talk about that in the future. Training, we did register 3 board members to go to TML if you want to go. Tomorrow's the deadline tomorrow is the deadline for that first fee. So I've got Mike, Mark, and Holly registered. and got your rooms all set. So, that is May 2nd and 3rd in Granbury. And I will attend the TEDC mid-year conference in June it's in Montgomery, Texas, Conroe, Lake Conroe area. Additional reports, I told you about the business calls. I am working on a business packet. I got stickers with our logo that we can put on the front of a packet and take it out. And I've been giving the maps. I did give that to Blue Diamond, maps of plan developments where we're seeing growth. They employ a lot of people from this area, so that was helpful.
That's great.
And that was it, on that staff report. So some
Now,
of that,
The Blue Diamond stuff, with the city's portion of tax payment, did you just look at the MDD? I can't remember what the city did, if it was, if theirs was linked to this point. Because I know they did a tax payment. so-
I don't know, but ours has to be for stuff like that.
Yeah, ours is just a
Certain
great-
restriction. Well, we help do the road, but again, as Alicia and I have had lots of discussions,
Partners
we
doing
have
it.
to meet certain criteria for primary jobs when we're paying for infrastructure and
So
stuff.
that means if it was a job sale, if some city could leverage to get that info, so that you could, again, for telling our story, promoting us.
Well, that's what I was doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't recall what the city's, the city did do a tax payment, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. I don't recall if they based it only on investment or if they based it upon
I'll
employment.
have
If
to
they did,
look.
then I think
I've
Blue Diamond
got
would
the
have to
agreement.
report back to the city,
I've got the agreement in my files.
and you might be able to piggyback on that data that they're already giving us, if it's an employment.
Yeah. Well, they're adding lines, which is good, and that adds 11 employees every time, and they're a 24-hour operation. I did not know that. And I love all subsidiaries is what they said. So, so is there anything else in here that it's burning? Yeah, I'm gonna come back to y'all with the program grant suggestions and changes to the application, so I don't know that we need to.
Does anybody have any goals or objectives you want to add to this work session or to Christina's staff report? All right, cool.
Can you go back to number 2?
Sure. Damn. Number 2, consider and approve a resolution authorizing, number 2.
So you're gonna do the budget amendment at your next meeting. See.
So we put that as.
Yeah, a future agenda item. What? I know, it's been a long day. Okay, so that was something I was gonna mention. We need to do the budget amendment. I'll be bringing back to y'all do you first want to?
Do we need to-
Sorry, what?
Do you want to move past work session and go to future?
No, we were on it. That's what we were on. I just asked anybody if they had any goals or objectives.
Do we want to ask Alicia if just adding that to agenda is fine, or if we need to add it back to the motion to approve it and adjust budget? Or can you?
Alicia, do we?
No,
need-
I recommend you bring that next meeting and
Sure.
adjust your budget in its own item. Christine and I talked about that today.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other future agenda items that we need to add?
On that future agenda item, the council will be considering that on the 18th, so they will approve the budget prior to you approving the budget.
Perfect. That's great. Does anybody have any future agenda items other than she's going to bring me
Continue to work on the grant.
the grant application? Thank you. Grant application.
You wanna put down update on the mural submissions, or do you just want that to be part of the?
I mean,
We'll
if
just
they
wait
send something,
June. Yeah, if they have something,
they make.
then we can put it on.
I'll put it in staff report,
Okay.
progress.
Okay, that's perfect.
Perfect.
That's great. Anybody else have anything? All right. Do I have a
Oh, hold on, just real quick, I want to make sure everybody's getting the portal link, or like you set up a login in the portal. If you have not, I'm gonna send y'all some instructions. If you're not seeing the link probably has expired, the one Jenny sent you. So she'll send you a new link, then there's instructions for setting up a login, but in the future, I'm trying to post all your stuff here in the agenda packet for y'all that you can access through the portal. And then if you need copies of something for your book binders and you don't have a printer at home, I'm happy to print it for you here. Just let me know. Some people wanted me to do that before because they didn't have printers, but whatever we can do to eliminate, I agree, paper's chaos. So,
Okay. And so we'll do that.
Yeah, please send me, that did not click. I
okay.
think when that came out, I was.
I'm just gonna tell Jenny to send the link. Vicky, you're set up on it though, right? On the portal?
We will have Jenny send everyone. I don't think anyone on our.
I get like 3 copies of everything that comes out every single time. and
I know.
don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah, we aren't set up on the portal. So we'll
Okay.
get you set up.
And the reset, the instructions he gave me today was to try to reset the password, and it never even sent me the link to reset the password,
Okay.
so
Oh, man.
it's junk.
They probably
So-
send it to your city, that you can get.
Well, but that.
Well, probably
it-
goes into
It
the,
didn't go into junk, it didn't go into spam, it should be registered.
but it
to
may
the
be our
city account.
server rejecting
So,
that
it
thing
could
for
be-
y'all's emails.
If it
It
rejects
said
it,
let her know again, which makes,
Okay.
I'm guessing I wonder if they have to wipe the account and recreate it, but
if it's a server, it's sends you an email and then you just, it rejected every one of Erin's emails that she sends from both our.
Okay.
websites. And I said, I need you to accept these going forward, and so they fixed it. So it's a real simple process. So if it does, something does get rejected, it's in your email. So I don't think that's the
Yeah,
case.
that's.
Okay, so going forward, Jenny's gonna send y'all a link. Look forward, if you do not get it within the next week, notify me.
Okay. Do I want a motion to adjourn?
We didn't do anything in executive session, we just had it on there in case we needed it.
No,
No, we
We
do.
do, but I have to adjourn into the session. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Make a motion to close normal session, go into executive session at 9:16.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Vicky, a second by Mark. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. All right.
Okay, resuming.
The Municipal Development District reserves the right to adjourn into closed session at any time during the course of this meeting to consult with its attorney regarding any of the matters listed on this document. As authorized by the Texas Government Code, section 551.071, consultation with attorney. In accordance with Texas Government Code, section 551-001, the Auburn Municipal Development District will recess into executive session to discuss the following. Section 551.071, section 551.072. Do I have a motion to close into executive session?
And
Holly, you have 551087 as well.
Section 551.087.
And then you already have your motion in your second, so you're okay to.
Okay,
okay, pause now. Okay, okay. We're recording again, so now we need to go back into.
I make a motion that we go back into open session at 9:48.
I'll second it.
Motion to go back, all in favor,
okay.
passes.
2 seconds.
We are now back into regular session.
Did Aaron leave?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Aaron left at,
Probably 9:25.
9:25.
Wait, can I vote? for
You
this?
can.
Yeah.
We're in
Yeah,
session.
you're good.
You returned at 9:48.
48. It's closed.
Do you have anything else you would like to discuss?
I wanted to add something else before you adjourn for the future agenda items. I wanted to put a broker tour on there. On future agenda items.
I think broker through, does anybody else have any future agenda items? Motion to adjourn, wait, do y'all have anything to discuss?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Vicky, a second by Jesse. All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Night, everybody.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
night,
See you,
everyone.
Lisa.